a bluebird in my heart that wants to get out, but I'm too tough for him. I say, stay in there. I'm not going to let anybody see you.
Good evening, everyone, Facebook and everyone on YouTube and the digital platform. Welcome to Friday evening, another Downstage Productions episode. This is the first one of Downstage Productions in discussion, and we're starting it off with quite a serious and intense topic. The topic that we're addressing tonight is mental illnesses and medical conditions within the industry, the stigma against it, and how and what we experience as stage managers having an illness. We are a panelist of 6 stage managers who will be discussing this, but this will be presented by Leilani, who I will hand over now to, as I'll be part of a panel instead of hosting it. Firstly, please note that there is a disclaimer to this live broadcast due to the topics that we may discuss and may contain sensitive topics. Please prepare yourself that if it does upset you, we would ask you to rather not watch this broadcast. I will now hand over to Leilani and she can give us a bit more insight. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy.
Good evening, everyone. Hope you are well. I might break up every now and then. I have a little bit of connection issues. But yes, we are here tonight to talk about a very important topic. And I think something that has needed discussion for a long time. Okay, I'm seeing that people have a hard time hearing me. Is my thing help by any chance? Okay, so you guys can hear me on the screen. Alright. Yeah, so basically we are just going to introduce each panelist. About themselves and everything. And you guys hear me now?
We are struggling. We are struggling a bit to hear Leilani. Just a warning to everyone, in South Africa, especially in our area, we're experiencing quite a big weather storm at the moment, which means both our internet might cut out and stuff. But yes, if we're going to try and proceed, Leilani, we are struggling to hear you a bit. You sound clear on the stream, but we as the panelists are struggling to hear you a bit. You're quite soft. So I don't know if you quickly want to check at your sound and I will continue so long. Okay. Let me know once you're ready. So I'm going to continue. Sorry about that. We are experiencing a heavy storm in this side. I'm going to start bringing in the panelists and then we will do an introduction round to everyone. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, ladies. How is everyone doing?
Okay,
Fantastic.
surviving.
It's good. That's good. I think let's start at the basics. Let's go around from the beginning. Cassie, tell us a bit about yourself, your name, age, where you're from, etc.
I'm Cassie. I am 26 from Calgary, Alberta in Canada. I work on cruise ships as a stage manager and automation tech. So I get to double duty my job every day. And I have been home now a few months after actually being a part of ships that were stuck at sea.
Well, that sounds not fun, but let's pretend it's fun. Moving over, I'm going to try and pronounce the name.
Renee Desom.
Okay.
I have a French last name. I married a man of French descent, so my last name went from easy to hard.
Lovely, lovely. Why don't you introduce yourself a bit?
Yeah, hi, my name is Renee DeSom. I'm an equity stage manager at Actors Equity Association in Dallas, Texas, United States. I am a college professor starting full time in the fall, as well as a regional stage manager who has done showcases on Off Broadway and stage managed regionally here in the area.
Lovely. Let's move on to Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm originally from Silver Spring, Maryland. I actually just graduated college with a degree in theater and got into stage management a little bit more recently, but it's where I want to, get started. I actually originally was supposed to get started on a cruise ship soon, working backstage on stuff, hopefully working up the stage management, block. But, in these trying times, can't do that, but that's okay. So I'm young and new, but still here.
Welcome.
Oh, welcome to the crazy industry. I did not know pun were intended. Jackie, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Jackie Leibowitz. I'm 26. I am based out of New Jersey, but have spent quite a lot of time in the tri-state area doing everything from acting to stage managing to dramaturgy. And I kind of wear a lot of hats, also a musical theater historian. So every day is a little something different.
Lovely. Brittany, your turn. Introduce yourself a bit.
Hi, I'm Brittany. I'm 24. I'm based out of Florida, and I am a non-equity stage and production manager. I typically do theater for young audiences and also events.
And lastly, Morgan.
Last but not least, hello everyone. I am Morgan Eisen. I am based out of New York City, predominantly work off and off Broadway. But before that, I was a musician and I taught music and theater to children.
Wow.
And 15 other hats.
So we've got two people here that's into children's theatre. It seems like Leilani might be in a better sound position now, so I'm going to try and bring her back in, and let's hope she can then continue the discussion. Hi, Leilani. No. No.
Hi, can you guys hear me now?
Come on.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Much better.
Can you guys hear me? Better? Okay.
Still a bit on a jet plane, but otherwise good.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so we just finished the introduction round, so I will give over to you then.
Right. So would you first like to discuss or just briefly discuss the basic issues you guys experience in the industry, or like maybe common grievances you guys have, or I'm not exactly familiar with the industry,
So I think getting to the industry, and that's also why I invited you, because you're non-industry related, is because of that reason, is that you can, from an outside point of view, speak to us. I think we should start off with everyone maybe giving their medical condition background, if everyone is okay with that. I think each panelist by one.
I'll start. Sure. I have depression. I've had it for about 10 years actually, so a very long time. And then recently have been diagnosed with PTSD, just due to some current events and things that happened. So not quite sure where that's going to help how that's going to work now with having PTSD. But with depression, it's one of those odd ones that it's kind of weird. You can kind of work with, but you can't. It's very sneaky.
I have anxiety, pretty nominally high anxiety. And I also have PTSD stemming from sexual assault. So that's a hard one to deal with in our industry because a lot of shows involve that topic. So that's my awesomeness.
I didn't mean to laugh. Yeah.
Oh no, it doesn't offend me if you giggle. I try to sometimes make a joke in things because it helps me cope. So I giggle to help myself cope with things. So it doesn't bother me if you giggle at me.
Good to know. I think it's a way, I don't know, I can speak for myself, it's a way of a coping mechanism, dark humor. Sometimes people don't quite get it and they go like, you can't say that. And I'll go like, yeah, never mind. It's my way of coping with it. So, whatever. Let's move over to Late Show.
Yeah, I have depression and anxiety. I was diagnosed about 8 years ago. I was 13. Yeah, I think that's 8 years. Yes, that's 8 years ago. So from a young age, but those are what I've got. Again, kind of things that you can work with, but they kind of sneak up on you.
Definitely.
So for me, I am actually still working on getting an official diagnosis, but I have issues with anxiety and depression as well. And being in between therapists during a pandemic is a very strange place to be. Since I literally left one therapist in December and was looking for another one, but the world kind of fell apart. And I also have a physical issue right now. I have a herniated disc in my back, which has made things really, really strange during this pandemic, as Dion and Morgan very much know, because I have been dealing with doctors being shut down and you can't come in and, well, you need to have this thing happen, this surgery, but you have to wait till they reopen. So it's been a little bit of a strange time, but now things are finally starting to get moving again and I'm starting to get some answers.
Me personally, I've been diagnosed with depression, generalized anxiety disorder, and an eating disorder. In recovery for the eating disorder for the past 3-4 years, and then diagnosed with depression and anxiety when I was 12. So about 12 years. Yeah.
That brings it over to me. Most of mine are actually physical, and I've had a lot of emotional and mental ones based on a lot of my physical diagnoses. So it's been very hard on me. 15 years ago, I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And about 10 years ago, I got diagnosed with lupus. 2012, I got diagnosed with cancer. I beat cancer, and it keeps coming right on back. And then most recently, I have Crohn's, and I also have something called Meniere's disease, which is very rare, but is a progressive hearing loss. And I have degenerative disc disease. So trying to cope with all of these diagnoses, I definitely have a lot of ups and downs mentally I have to cope with, but nothing officially diagnosed. They all think that it just relate to coping with many of my physical illness. But I understand the swings completely.
And then from my side, as everyone knows, I made a public post about this a few weeks ago. I've got bipolar type 2 and severe anxiety. I was diagnosed when I was 16. And I recently only came public about that. So as you all can see, there's quite a variety of illnesses here, mostly based on mental illnesses and other medical conditions, which is good. And tonight, what we're going to try and do is just discuss all of this and speak about, as stage managers, what we experience having these illnesses, having these disorders, what we go through, the stigma we experience. Leilani is still struggling with her sound, but I would also like to include that she does have ADHD, depression, anxiety as well. And even though she is non-theatre related, it is a mental illnesses are all around us. I think jumping ahead and actually starting the discussion, how has your illness affected your work? And everyone chip in where you want. And
I will say, most recently, last summer, I was stage managing a production of Sweeney Todd, and in productions that involve sexual assault, I choose to disclose to the directors that I have PTSD, and I make that a very, like, I don't make it a big production. That's not our job as stage managers. We got to kind of, but I let them know that if things get a little serious, I'm going to have to step out of the room. Flashbacks, PTSD loops, they're real things. So, like, if I see anything that could potentially trigger, as a stage manager, I have to leave for a few minutes, and my ASM will usually have to step up for me for a few minutes. So I know that's what, but I've always been very, very lucky to have directors who have understood and not made it a big thing. Like, I've been very, very lucky with that.
That must be quite difficult. I mean, and we actually had a discussion, Morgan and Jack and myself, the other day about how many shows has sexual content in it. So, I mean, that must be extremely difficult for you stage managing a show and calling a specific cue during a scene like that comes up. If I may ask, have you ever had a flashback while calling a show?
No, but at one point I thought I was an actress, and I had one then. It was my first collegiate audition, and I relived my sexual assault on stage. It had happened less than a year before that. I hadn't told anybody. I hadn't said anything to anyone because it was a week before 9/11, so I didn't want anything to take away from what was going on in the other part of the world. And I was able to sink into that kind of depression and hide what I was going through because there was so many other things going on in the world. But that was it's one of the main reasons I quit acting. And I quit theater for 3 years because I was ashamed of having relived that on a stage, I was surrounded by people in a department I had just joined. So it was terrifying. It was scary, but the people who were in that department stepped up. I got very lucky. Somebody handed me a card to a rape crisis center here in Texas, in Plano, and said, call these people, they will help you. And I was able to get the therapy I needed to become myself again and become a survivor. So still seeing a therapist, though, because therapy is a good thing. Everyone should have a therapist.
Yes. I think I'm sorry to say this, but I'm sorry it happened so close to 9/11, but that shouldn't have, I mean, your experience and your trauma shouldn't have been put aside because of that. And I understand where you came from, and I'm sorry that happened to you. Yeah, it must be life.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
Well,
it's a lot to unpack.
I mean, over the years, we need to unpack it, and especially as stage managers. At the same time, I'm leading comments from Leilani here. So while I'm talking to you all, it's difficult being stage managers because you're supposed to be this perfect, happy smile always, human being, always on top of it, and you're not allowed to have off days. You're not allowed to experience something. And I mean, I can personally say, where I had to step out, we were busy with rehearsal. I was working with a very difficult production team, and I was start feeling anxiety attack coming, and I was production manager slash technical stage manager on that show, and I had to step out for a few minutes just to get out. Luckily, I am in a position where most of my employees has understand and we're okay with it, but I have always also worked for some employees where they did not understand. Morgan, I think we spoke recently, something that you may relate to about that, also stepping away because you had to, if I'm correct. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I've had many instances where I have had to sort of remove myself from the equation, or like we were just talking about, I actually took a lot of years off. I partly because that stigma that is in our industry with, like, if you are not 100% perfectly on top of your game. I mean, as stage managers, we're expected to have these superpowers and be on our game 100% and doing everything and be 50 steps ahead. And sometimes you can't handle that. And I had taken some time off of stage management and to like focus on my health. And I had a lot of trouble getting back into it, not only just my foot back in the door, but mentally, because I didn't feel like I was the stage manager that I was 10 years ago before I had all of these diagnoses. And I have had instances where it's been a little too much and I had to step away for me. I also, I mean, nothing's been diagnosed, but I do have a lot of anxiety and stuff coping with it, and just being back in the room and everything, and people, getting on me and the pressure of stuff. I needed that second. And I've always stressed to people the importance of taking a little bit of mental health. And even if it's just you saying, I have to go to the bathroom, to step into the hall or go somewhere and just take a few deep breaths and, then reapproach the situation. It's a very important thing just for yourself, and to be able to give a good example for other people, because we all like to say that we have superpowers, and but sometimes we do have those moments of weakness, and we do have to focus on ourselves so that it doesn't become this so much bigger thing.
And sometimes it can just be something little. I mean, some of my anxiety, one of my little triggers can be emails. And so many people want you to be accessible constantly, to answer that email, to have your phone on you at any moment. And I'll suddenly see a bunch of emails pile up and I just shut down and I can't answer them, and I have to stop and I have to step away and look at it again in the morning. And people will be very confused. Well, why didn't you answer? Why didn't this happen? It's hard to send back that email because you're constantly thinking, all right, if I talk about how this makes me anxious, is that going to make you not want to hire me again? Is that going to make you want to have me step down on this production? There's so many little things that you're constantly thinking of that feed back into the anxiety. And it makes it quite difficult, even though it's something so little that most people wouldn't think a second about.
And it's tough. Like, for instance, I just came from a boys' club. I was the only girl on my team. And with being on ships, we were doing multiple nationalities as well. I was with predominantly English and Filipino. And unfortunately, it's hard to explain to them sometimes, I need 5 minutes. Because in their head, they're going, well, no, you need this now. And it's hard sometimes with dealing with that, because you try and say, I need 5 minutes. And they just go, well, why do you need 5 minutes? Are you being emotional? But it's hard to transition too. For me, I have to be very unemotional, calm in my job. I cannot have emotions. I am flying people in the air while paying attention to the stage and seeing how the dancers are doing. And unfortunately, one of the negatives I've always gone, it's mostly specifically from men I've gone this, I'm too unemotional. I'm not perky enough or happy enough. But when you're trying to do your job, and a huge job of its safety, yes, I'm sorry, I'm going to say stand by in a very calm voice, because that standby needs to be heard. And it's tough when you live with who you work as well, because they don't understand when you say, no, I don't want to meet up at the crew bar. I would like to just be on my own. They go, well, you must like, what's going on in your personal life and all this. But sometimes they don't understand. Your work life does take a toll on you mentally, and you do need downtime. You need space. And with these boys, they had tendency to live, work, and play all together all the time. And they didn't understand that for me, with especially having depression, too much emotion, too much energy when you're around downstairs takes a huge physical toll on you. And you need to just go and rest and take that mental break. Go to the gym, do something that's just not related to work.
I mean,
I actually had shared something with Dion earlier, and said, like, is this okay? I live my life by something called the spoon theory, where the concept of it is basically, for invisible illnesses, and whether it is mental, whether it is physical, whether it is, related to previous traumas, you start your day with only so many spoons. You have so many spoons that you can delegate to do one thing or to do another. And once you start running out of those spoons, you need a little bit of self-care so that you can, borrow a spoon from tomorrow. You can take a break, step away for a minute, and gather those spoons together, because you only have so much that you can handle in a moment, so much you can handle in a day. And sometimes you need to take that time to focus on yourself. And you need to be able to step away, even if it is at the cost of people saying to you, like, what's the matter? What's the matter? You need to be able to, whether it's physically rest or just take that mental escape. Or, I think we all probably have dealt with the, that break time, that 15-minute break that you call for your casts. You don't get that 15-minute break, because that 15-minute is the time that you go and you fix the props that broke, the set problems, the refocus the lights, the change the bulbs, any of those kind of things. But it really is important for us to take that break, to take that lunch break. And I know I am 100% guilty that my meal break very rarely is me actually having a meal. It is normally me taking care of things that need to be done in the next hour, so that when we pick up where we left off, we can actually go through. And a lot of directors don't think about that, because they get their breaks. They don't think of the fact that we're just go, 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 that sometimes you need that little respite away to take a little bit of you time. And I don't think it should be a bad thing for us to say that we need it.
but see, that's the problem is, as stage managers, we are not allowed to have that time away. We are supposed to be there constantly. We're supposed to be fine. We're supposed to be on it. We can't go, I need a moment, because who's going to take over? And that is the biggest problem. That is what this whole thing is part of, is explaining that sometimes as stage managers, we're going to need a moment. We need to step away. Sometimes something is going to get too difficult for us. A rehearsal is going to get too difficult. A director yelling too much, and I'm sorry, we've all been through it, is going to get too much hectic, and you need to be able to say, okay, I'm stepping out for 5 minutes. I need a break. And that is where this is where it comes from, is that we as stage managers, we can't do that. Because once you say, I need to step out, immediately there's that stigma caused of, you won't be able to do this job because it's too stressful. You've got bipolar, talking about myself. So what if you accidentally kill someone or go into an episode and you go crazy and call queues long? Where that is not what we're saying. We're saying we need a moment, we need a break, we need to step aside. But that does not mean we cannot do our jobs. And in my case, I've actually had this discussion recently, where I've done my job actually better because I'm aware of my illness. I try and work harder because I know that there is an illness that affects me, and I'll put everything more into it just so that my illness doesn't affect my work. But coming to the baseline is that as stage managers, well, not just stage managers, but actually any theater staff, is that we should be able to step away and go, okay, everyone, I need 5 minutes. I just need to go take a smoke break. I need to go take a tea break. I'll be back. I just need to step out. And it should be okay. It should be accepted, and it should be said, yes, that is fine. Do your thing. I mean, most of us, we don't even take lunch breaks. We don't take tea breaks. We work through it. We will do a scene change in a lunch break, an interval. I mean, I can't tell how many times I didn't have time to go smoke because I had to do a scene change. And that is important. We also need to be able to step away because we are the people maintaining that show and making sure everything's fine. We cannot sit there for 3 hours without stepping out, getting some fresh air, just taking a moment for yourself. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest problem.
I actually put my foot down when it comes to my breaks and my dinner breaks. I refuse not to take them. I think that's why I'm worried. I haven't worked this last season because my father died of lung cancer, and my goal was to quit smoking cigarettes. So in January, I quit smoking cigarettes. And I am nervous about going back to work in the theater because now I don't have an excuse to step away for 10 minutes. I'm not like, okay, I'm going to go get my nicotine fix and I walk away. Now I just have to look at people and be like, it's my break too. So I actually, in order to enforce that, because I've quit smoking before, I leave the rehearsal room and I go to the green room, or I go walk outside the theater and just kind of, stretch and shake it out a little bit. And then I come back in, a few minutes before break's over, and I start up again. But I have to force myself to take lunch or to take breaks. Otherwise, I won't be able to perform at my best.
And it's enforcing the team to respect your 15. It's not the cast is taking 15, we're going to talk and then come back. It's no, all of us are going to take 15. All of us are going to walk away. What we need to talk about, we'll come back 5 minutes early and talk about. And I think that's a big one where a lot of, I find it's tough because you have the director, choreographer, your fellow techs all coming at you during that break because that's the talk time, that's the go over stuff time. And you're going, no. We're going to be here for 10 hours today. Get out. Take 5. We need to enforce that respect. Everyone just take the mental break.
I think that's also good that's one of the reasons that I love that in stage management we have a team. It's not just you alone, because a lot of times my fellow stage managers are the ones who make sure that we take care of ourselves. That was one of my very first memories in college, is a director shoving a roll of gaff tape at me and saying, tape this down while we're on break and you don't have cast coming through here. And I was saying, I've been here for hours. I'm a freshman in college. Why am I not allowed to do this? And the stage manager walked over to me and said, no, go take your break. Don't do it. This is your time. And she said, this can be done when we come back. You take your time. And I thought that was one of the most important lessons to learn right out of the gate. And I was so grateful to have such a great woman that was teaching me that, who just happened to be a fellow student, teaching me that lesson right out of the gate. Because we have to take care of each other. We have to see that that's happening and make sure that that burden, it doesn't fall on one person.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Rachel, please.
I went to USITT last year, and one of the stage management workshops, I think it was with 2 stage managers from Cirque du Soleil. One of them said, it's good to have a conversation at the beginning and throughout with your whole cast and your whole team of making sure you're all on the same page of if you need to leave, you don't have to tell me why. You just need to look at me and say, I need a minute. And that way it's kind of normalized for everybody. And then I followed suit with that a bit, because my first full-on stage management gig was last year. It was a completely student-run benefit concert. And the director was another student who also happened to be my college best friend and roommate, which was lots of fun. But luckily, we both got along well and worked together very well and understood. And so I told him first, I was like, this is what I'm going to tell them. This is what I'm telling you. If you need to step out, that's cool. Just tell me. If my ASMs need to step out or if I need to step out, as long as it's being communicated, you don't even have to tell me why. So that helped a bit, because I know myself and I know that I'll be the same kind of person that like won't take my break, or even if I'm feeling like all of the weight in the world, I'll just kind of push through. I even had a friend during our 10 out of 12 look at me and go, Rachel, you're not staying here. You don't have to come out to lunch with us, but you're not staying in this theater. And I was like, okay, you're right. So kind of that helped a lot, was like hearing that and following through of like, if everybody is aware that like this is a thing that can happen and it's allowed, it wasn't quite as, you know, abnormal or like, oh no, something's wrong if somebody needed to step out. Again, it's a bunch of college students, so still like we were concerned, but it was a little bit more normalized and was able to still continue on. It might have been a blessing that it was all students, because I know a lot of times older people or professors, or older artists, I should say, you know, they have a different perspective on all of it just because of how things have changed. So I have professors who are like, that's dumb. Like, why would you need to do that? So blessing and a curse, but that seemed to help quite a bit.
Some of that stigma, I think, does come from the different generations right now. And I'm grateful that we're learning to change, and we are coming out of that saying, all right, a lot of people have mental illnesses and they are just as real as physical ones. And we all need to take that time. And suddenly that's becoming a bigger conversation. And now we can start taking that stigma out of it. And while some people are still learning how to do that, we're starting to move forward, but it's definitely still there.
It's part of the reason I became a college professor, honestly, Jackie. I saw how people were teaching their students. And there was this, you just, if you're a stage manager, or it doesn't really matter, you just go, 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 go. Yep. Forget family funerals, forget going to see your best friend get married. You're in theater and you have to give up everything for this career. And I honestly, my professors always told me, take breaks when you need them, do what you need to do. But I didn't really learn how to do that until I became a mom. And I had to learn how to take care of myself. Like I had a very not so good birth story with my daughter. I almost didn't make it off the table. And several nurses told me I had to take care of myself to take care of her, because I had to recover. I had an emergency cesarean. So I had to take care of myself to take care of my baby. And so that was something I learned right off the bat. And I have been able to carry that into my stage management as well. I can't take care of a cast unless I'm taking care of myself. I can't take care of the designers and what they need unless I am listening to my body and my mind and giving my body and mind what they need as well.
Put on your own oxygen mask first.
Right, right.
I want to jump in very quickly and bring up a comment from Tiff Owen, who commented on Facebook, saying, not always though. I've been a one-woman team for many productions, and I tend to focus on the care of everyone else and not me. And I think everyone here can relate to that. How many times that has happened where you would go, no, you take a break, I'm fine, I will stick through. Especially as a stage manager, because you need to be there, you need to take control. So you will either send your team on break and you stay behind and push through, which again is something which we should not do. If it's break time, we all should take a break. Jumping a little bit back, Danae, you said, like, you put your foot down and said, this is your break time, as Jack as well. Unfortunately, in South Africa, it's not that easy. Usually, when a break is announced, the stage manager will be called by the director for notes, or this, or this, or that. Which means by the time that we're actually done as a stage manager, the crew is back and the break is finished. Which means then you can't line out to go smoke or take a break because you're starting again. And that has happened multiple times where I'll go a day of like 14 hours. And I'll get from that 14 hours, I'll get a 1 hour break. And I mean, again, there's been some employees that's been amazing. There's been employees that I've worked with that brought, if I've had a long day, brought me like a little goodie baggie with energy drinks and chocolate and food. But there's also been employees that said, no, the work needs to get done. And where I ended up till 2 o'clock in the morning painting a stage on my own. Because that's after I've like taked 4 shows a day. So it's a bit different in South Africa than towards all of you. Obviously also because you guys have unions and we don't, which is the biggest problem.
That being
and
said, I mean, there have been productions where even though I'm one of those, like, first rehearsal, I'm like, your break is a break, my break's a break too. There have been times on productions where there's been so much going on, I haven't been able to get a break, like you said, right? Like, I think all of us have been there, but I agree, not having a union has got to be, I'm very lucky that I am a member of said union because I can wield that sword. So for people who are still working non-union, my hat goes off to you because that's a sword you can't wield, and it's one that I can. It's why I joined. Well, that and the healthcare. I was 30 years old and didn't have healthcare, and I was like, so hats off to the people who fight that, because I can't imagine my life without that sword at the moment.
Even when you are in a company that has a mix of equity and non-equity here in the US, and I'm the one that's non-equity, so suddenly I don't get my lunch break, I've got to go do this thing. It happens here too, even if you're in a house that is an equity house.
Well, for Rachel, because you're going to be joining ships, I started in a similar position as you. One of the biggest challenges is the majority of the team is either from India or Philippines. And in their mind, break time is work time. You work. And it's hard because in your mind, you grew up in this society where breaks are breaks in this. And then you have to fight your boss, your team. All these people on a stepping stone get your 15 minutes to breathe. Or sometimes it's hierarchy in the team as well. Some people get 15, some of you are still working. And it's hard to kind of explain to people sometimes the 15 has nothing to do with anything except if I'm going to make it 5 more hours, I need 15 minutes just to clear my head. And I think because like for ships, there's no union. One of the biggest issues on ships is actually during this COVID was there was a huge, in 3 weeks, I believe it was about 10 crew committed suicide. Like it was horrible. And there's no mental health professionals on ships. There's nothing. You have an HR sometimes, but there's no union. There's no one telling you. There's no one helping you. You have to fight kind of to stop people from overdoing your hours, overdoing this. And there's taboo to talk about it. So when I became a manager, my ASM loved him. He would argue because he wanted to work. And I go, no, we're going to be here for 8 hours. You're going on break. That is like an order straight up. And you have to fight it sometimes with people because they don't understand this break is for the long haul. And yes, you may work 20 minutes extra, but it's better having a 20-minute break and working only 20 minutes extra versus being tired and working 2 hours extra because you're making silly mistakes.
I know that.
So,
sorry,
I just want to jump in there. Something that Lilani has popped into our chat. 2 things actually. One is she says if your workplace doesn't allow you to be human, it should be addressed, and we shouldn't need excuses to take breaks, which I completely agree with. Sometimes it's not possible, but I completely agree with. And then she also does say that, and that doesn't mean you're weak. Taking care of yourself makes you better despite others viewing you as weak for it. By taking care of yourself, you are also taking care of a show in a way. You are taking care of a team, because if you burn out, if you crash, the whole show will potentially crash, depending on, I mean, like Tiff said, if it's a one-person show, if she crashes, the show goes down.
I actually had an example of that. where my director, it was a problem for a very long time. She wouldn't allow us to have our breaks. I would push for breaks. And a couple times I had said to her, it was like, that this is supposed to be a 10-minute break, but if I sit here with you for 10 minutes, then it's going to have to become a 15 because I need to go refill my water bottle, go to the bathroom, and just walk for a little bit because I've been sitting in this chair for an hour and a half now. And it became, an issue of, we were supposed to end rehearsal at a certain time and we were supposed to end at 11. And I'm like, okay, we need to end. She's like, yeah, but I need to give notes. And it ended up being 12 o'clock. And I'm like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm shutting the lights and locking the door. Please, everybody leave the building. You'll be back. And this continued so long in the production that I actually ended up in the hospital because I just pushed myself. And there was a day I had to say to her, I'm sorry, I'm being taken into the hospital via an ambulance because I have not been able to take care of myself. I have not been sleeping. I have not been eating. And I woke up and I couldn't walk. And what good am I to you if I am paralyzed from the waist down? And, I sent an email out to one of my friends and I said, can you please cover this rehearsal? But, here, pick up my prompt book in my locker. Here's my code. Here's everything. But my director ended up pushing me so far that I ended up in the hospital, and nobody should ever have to experience that. You need to be able to take care of yourself and take care of the people around you. And I admit I am that stage manager that is the mother. I take care of everybody. This production is like my baby. I am so nurturing, but sometimes at the expense of myself. And you can't do that to yourself. It's not fair, and it's not fair to the production. Because if not for my friend, there would have been no rehearsal that day.
But see, I'm exactly the same. I'm the person who goes, oh, this is my show. I don't need a break. I need to finish stuff, come home, still work another 4 hours into the morning hours because, oh, it's my show. And that is where we need to start drawing the line and going, actually, no. Once I get home, my work is done. I send my report, that's it. I'm not responding to emails unless it's urgent till tomorrow, once I'm back in the rehearsal room or once I'm awake. And I think we as stage managers, we should start implementing that. And I'm the only one from South Africa, so it will be a solo fight from my side, but it is something that we should start implementing and going, listen, I finish work at 6 o'clock. I'm not going to respond to emails until 9 o'clock tomorrow. I'm not going to answer any work calls. If it's urgent, then yes, give me 5 calls and then I'll answer and know something is long and I need to answer. But otherwise, no, take your break. But I'm just as guilty as that. I'll come home and I will still continue working for hours because I need to get stuff done and I don't want to let people down. Because
that's why I send reports before I leave the rehearsal, though. Before I leave the rehearsal room, I send the report, or else I will work until 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning just doing paperwork that, why does it need to be done right now? It doesn't. It doesn't need to be done for another week. So I've learned in my brain how I shut that off is I send that report before I lock up and walk out the door. And then my computer doesn't come out when I get home. So I'm not working until 3 or 4 or 5 in the morning. I'm older than some people on here. But I'm 36. I'll be 37. I'm not 150 years old. But I'm
about to turn 31. I'm with you.
I am about to, start a full-time job as a professor while I'm stage managing, because in the professor world, it's publish or perish, or work professionally or perish. And I prefer to work professionally because my students learn more from that than they do about me writing a theoretical paper on color mixing, right? So I have to start setting up boundaries, and I have to start I have to take care of myself. So over my many years in this industry, I have learned how my brain works and how to take care of myself based on how my brain works. And I want to change that in the industry. I don't want students like Rachel who are just coming out of school to have to spend the next 15 years figuring that out. You know, I want them to start figuring that out when they're freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors. I think that'll make our industry way better. And I think that this should be a worldwide standard. Like, I think that we shouldn't have to fight for our rights as theater practitioners just in America. What we do here affects the way that things are done in South Africa, affects the way that things are done in the UK. We have to start thinking about this as a global issue, not just, this is me, how am I going to take care of myself? It's how are we going to take care of each other? How can we learn from one another?
I mean, how many times have we spent 8 hours in rehearsal, then gone home to type up line notes for 4 hours and just thought that that was a normal thing and not questioned it?
I can't even count that high.
Yeah.
I'd be a millionaire if I had a dime for every time that happened.
And I've had to have, that's happened. And I've walked in the rehearsal and told my cast, I typed 317 line notes last night. Most of those were for 2 people. Why are you not doing your homework? Why am I consistently giving the same 2 people notes every single night? Why am I doing this extra work and you are not? Like, sometimes you have to call that out and put it on. Like, it's not my job to make you learn your lines or to learn your crew tracks. I'm here to tell you that you're not doing it correctly and to give you the materials and the aids, but I'm not here to do your job for you. I'm here to do mine. But I think
that starts at the training too, like how we train people in our industry. Like, you know, yes, actors are trained that they have to be on time and they have to learn lines and they have to blah, blah, blah. But a lot of, thank you for laughing at that, a lot of collegiate programs don't train their kids to respect what it is that we do, you know, where actors are like, oh, they're just a technician. I'm very fortunate. I have been with casts the last few years who are amazing and they are respectful of the crew and they are respectful of the things that we do. But not everybody thinks that way. Everybody thinks that, you know, the talent is the super important part, but they couldn't do what we do without us. Like,
I think that stems all the way back to teaching it in school, as we should be teaching everyone to respect it. I mean, I received my training both as an actor, as a stage manager. I learned all these different places. And you know who are the most successful ones? The very first actor I had that decided, hey, can I sit behind you in tech to watch what you're doing and see how hard your job is? Oh, I understand. So let me respect that more now. He was the first one to book a job on Broadway out of school.
So I respect actors because they vomit emotion on stage. Like, that's something I can't do. I'm not a person who likes to show my emotions to the world. Like, I'm very open about what I've been through in my life, but I also don't sit here and, you know, show you all the emotions that I have working through my trauma, right? Like, I will tell you about it, but I won't show you the tears that come afterwards, right? Like, that's for me. That's mine. But I think that, yeah, like, I think that actors do something that I can't do, which is why I respect my actors. Go ahead, y'all. Like, I laughed my way through my wedding because I knew I had to kiss my husband in front of 150 people. I couldn't even keep, like, I was like, oh, people are going to watch me kiss him? So, like, actors, you guys are amazing. I just wish that respect came back.
Yeah, see, the thing is,
I actually had an actor.
Sorry.
I feel like everyone started talking.
It doesn't actually stem from the actors. It stems from the managers, the directors, the producers.
Yes.
Actors are actually, and I've experienced actors and performers and singers coming to me going like, hey, it's Tech, here's a coffee for you. and on multiple times where they would be on stage and they
Bless
take a
them.
break, and obviously I stay behind.
Mhm.
And they'll come back and be like, "Hey, I was in the canteen. I thought you might want a coffee because you've been here all day." Or, "Hey, here's a chocolate."
Actors
So
are amazing.
I mean, I also
I
have
had an actor on my last show that came to tech and dress rehearsals and stuff dressed in all black and walked over to me and he goes, "I'm your ASM. I am here to help you with anything that you need because I'm literally going to be sitting here and waiting. And we need more actors who understand how hard it is and how I can't run around and be in 15 places at once and I do need another set of hands. So if you can stand here and hold this flashlight while I'm over there fixing something, or stand here while I'm over there doing that, or, help this person by, handing them something or take something from them just for tech while I'm fixing something or dealing with an explosion that happened." But then there's also actors. When I was in school, some of our teachers and some of the actors quite literally referred to us as trained monkeys. And it was like, they were like, "Yeah, anybody can push a button. Anybody can do this. Anybody can put a prop somewhere. A trained monkey can do that." And it was like, what? And in my college, we ended up having all of the techies and the stage managers and the people building the sets. We got so offended by people referring to us as trained monkeys and like, scats and stuff like that, that we striked. We were like, "Fine, do a production without us." And it was like, build your sets, make your costumes, make your changes, do your quick changes in 7 seconds without an extra set of hands, or do it. Have no one calling your show, no one running your lights, no one hanging your lights. See what you can do without your trained monkeys.
It's the
Oh,
balancing act, I think. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's a balancing act. Like I specifically work with dancers, and I've had some incredible ones because we're one team. We don't have external help. We don't have any of that. What happens on stage is the backstage hands, the booth, and the dancer. So when there's a crisis, sometimes it is, and it's nice, you have dancers who understand the shows, but when it gets really technical, you have the dancers who are not looking, who don't pretend doesn't happen. And when you know what's going on technically, let's say something happens, and like you're dealing with a Sarah pitch hack and there's a blade, you can tell them, "Hey, can you just knock that like 2 centimeters, pop it in, we can go." A dancer will go on, improv, pop it in, come out. And it's a great relationship when you can do that. But I've also had funny ones where we've had this was in my starting days, like a stage manager, unfortunately, who should not have been stage manager, did not know the show. We did so many fixes backstage. They had no idea what was going on. Like, I think we've managed to save more shows without them even knowing anything to put in the report because it just wasn't worth the headache. But I think it's balanced because like I've had casts where they want to understand backstage and what's going on because it is a small community. And then you have the ones who show up to a tech run because like for us, tech runs are mandatory before every show. And they go, "Can someone get injured? I don't want to do this today." And for me, it's like, I'm here with 5 people till midnight building the set. I am here an hour before you with my guys sweeping and mopping. We're testing everything. We're doing everything. And unfortunately, sometimes on the ship I'm currently on, they don't have any external duties. Their job is to dance. That's it. So when they get to sleep in and then show up to the tech and then they're acting like they don't want to do it, it even starts taking a toll on you mentally a little bit. You're going, "Okay, guys, I'm trying to have a positive attitude." And like sometimes circumstances happen and you're going, everyone's just down. And you're trying to keep it up. But at the same time, you're going, "Guys, we all signed a contract. We're all here to do a job. We're all in this together. Now, if you just want to dance, that is fine. But then don't expect extra from the other side and helping you either sometimes. It goes 2 ways."
Cassie, though, sometimes it's written into our contracts where it's not written into theirs. They have this little clause in our contracts that say other duties as assigned. And that's not a lot of we all laugh.
That's one of my
not
pet
a clause
peeves.
in the talent contracts, right? That the talent contracts, they're like, all you have to do is be amazing. And that's how they get us, is that little clause. Other duties as assigned, which who knows what that
Can
may
we
be when
outlaw
sign
that clause, please?
See,
Yep.
for
Yes.
us on ships, we actually have emergency duties as well. So we
Yes,
have
you
to
do.
so we have those special clauses. And on some ships, like my previous one, there's clauses that some dancers do actually have to do other duties like luggage and things like that. This is the first ship where there was no extra clause. They literally just had to do the shows. So I knew all the contracts, and I was sitting there going, okay, show up, be ready. That is your one job. That's all we're asking of you. And be positive.
So
And that is
Have
why
an
I
open
love when the
mind.
talent is happy to help.
so I just want to
And
jump
that's when I
back.
love when they're so happy to help, and that actor that's like, I will go make sure that everybody is on the call. Oh, I'll go give places. Thank you for letting me do that. And
Yeah.
because they don't need to, and it takes something off of us, and it shows the right mindset for people to be collaborating in. And this is a collaborative art.
Yeah.
So I just want to jump in there. I worked on a show, and we usually start loading out, like we did a few venues, and we usually start loading out obviously after show. Like immediately curtain down, we start loading out and striking and packing up and stuff. And then we would get back to the hotel or the accommodation at like 4 o'clock next morning, where we've been working through the night, and then the performers will come home because they were out partying because they just finished another show, and they're like, "Oh, how are you? How was your night?" And you're like, "I'm so tired, I don't even know what my name is." And they're like, "Oh yeah, no, so we were here. Do you want to like see the pictures?" And I'm like, "No, I honestly don't." And then something else, I just want to pop up another comment here on the screen, which I actually want us just to quickly chat about. Where did this idea come from that taking a break was perceived as weak? Who thought this up?
I want to know too.
Yeah, can we go
Yeah,
back
I
in
wish
history?
I knew.
Someone take a time machine back and figure it out, can we? Also figure out who invented high heels, and we'll take that person out too. Yeah? We just all.
But I mean, and I responded to that actually. I said, as a stage manager, you always need to be there and you need to be strong, no matter what. So taking a break because you're having a moment, and I'm saying a moment, it will be seen, it and is seen as weak. It comes back to the thing of, but will you then be able to do the show? Will you be able to actually call the show? Because if you need a break now because it's getting hectic, what happens during the show? And it comes back to that original thing of stop stigmatizing us. But if we need a break for 5 minutes, but we can't do our job, we can still do our job, and we will still do our job, unless I mean, we all know this saying: you don't miss the show unless you're dead. Even then, you're still at the theater.
The show
But I
must go
mean,
on.
the show must go on.
Well,
But
unless
Yep.
there's a pandemic, and then the show obviously is not
Show
going
still
on.
has to go on.
okay, now
So,
you went into a
unfortunately.
sensitive topic.
I mean, Dion knows that with my current physical issue with the herniated disc, when it happened, I was in a production of Baby. It was 9
yes.
days out from the show. And this happened, and I didn't know exactly what it was, but I had a back spasm. Okay, that happens sometimes, but it was causing some pain down my leg. This has never happened before. Okay, this is a problem. I start seeing some doctors. We don't really have an answer for this. Maybe it's a pinched nerve. Maybe it's sciatica. You're too young for it to be sciatica. Like this whole issue. I miss a bunch of tech, and that has never happened for me before, to miss this much. I miss our first dress rehearsal because I just am in too much pain to do it. The director offers me a wheelchair to do the show, and I'm not going to re-choreograph a whole show in a wheelchair. I wound up using a cane for my entire run. It was the most painful thing I have ever done. I have not stopped using that cane since February. And the show literally had to go on. I re-choreographed what I had to, and that was just what was in my brain was, all right, there's no one else to do this. I'm going to do it. and I'm just going to do it with a cane and push through. Looking back on it, I have no clue how I did it. I do not know how I pushed through that pain because I did not have the right medications yet. I didn't even have a diagnosis that was correct yet. I did not know, but we are so conditioned to just say, the show must go on. We have to do this. There's no one else to do it. And I made it through, but at what cost? It's 5 months later and I still don't have an answer.
One of the
I mean, I
Yeah.
can. Sorry. So I told Morgan Jack
We
actually
all
knows
jump.
about this. Yeah, we all jump. It's part of the discussion. But I actually told Jack and Morgan they both know about this. I was doing a show and I literally just started professional stage management. It was a few years ago. And I was ASM on an opera, but I was also stage managing a show. And the show had like 2 performances. And there was these steps, draping stuff, and I went down to front of house to tell them, okay, cool, we're good to open house. And then obviously I land up to get away before the audience comes in, like the zombie apocalypse. I land, and I slipped on the steps, and I slipped with my knee literally like on the step. I went in, I started the show. During the show, I started feeling a bit uncomfortable with my leg, with my knee. I'm like, it's a bit sore, but whatever. This was for Friday. The Saturday, I was like, oh, it's a bit uncomfortable, but it's probably just, it will go away. Sunday, still a bit pain, taking some pain meds, cool, I'm fine. The Monday, I get to work, they're like, no, let's just send you to hospital just to be sure. And I went to the hospital, and the doctor looked, and he's like, okay, so you've torn your ligament, you have fractured your kneecap, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, that's lovely. He's like, yes, we immediately need to get you on crutches, everything. I'm like, no, but it's fine. I've been going on for like 4 days. He's like, what do you mean 4 days? I'm like, no, I fell on Friday. He's like, it's Monday today. I'm like, yeah. He's like, but you shouldn't be walking. I'm like, oh, well, I had a show to do. That was literally my response. I went like, oh, well, I had a show to do. And I mean, thinking back, now I still struggle with this knee. If it gets cold, it feels like, I'm sorry to say this, but I feel like an old person. I feel like it's creaking. Like in those animated movies where like they move their joints, and that's what it feels like with his knee. And that was because of stupidity, because I needed to be there for my show. And with that topic, jumping much further back into the past, when I was in high school still, I was part of a technical team, and we had these massive PA speakers, and there's actually a big sign on it that says, not allowed to be carried by one person at any stage, at any time. Me being me, and I got angry because because I was the head of a team, they didn't want to listen. I picked up the speaker, I carried it about 1 kilometer to the field, came back, picked up the other one, carried it to the field, felt like, oh, my shoulder's a bit sore, found out I completely dislocated my shoulder and fractured my shoulder blade because I was stubborn. And in a way, I'm sorry to say this, but we are bloody stubborn. In a way. But that is not the point of it. The point is that we should still...
We're so conditioned to think that that's normal, though. And we have to find a way to break that. Because how many of us were told that that was normal? How many of us were told that your life in theater meant you're going to miss funerals and weddings? And that was trending on Twitter this week. There was a tweet that said that. And how many people answered it thinking, isn't this, that's what I was told at school. I didn't know
I missed my sister's wedding.
But
yeah,
it shouldn't
I missed my sister's wedding completely because
we shouldn't have to miss being human because of our job.
But I will say,
human.
It's not just managers; it's each other as well. So a few years back, when I first moved back to Dallas, I was stage managing at a Fort Worth theater. Okay, and let me just point this out: Dallas and Fort Worth are not like, they're 2 separate cities. All right. And they're an hour apart. So like I was driving from Dallas to Fort Worth every day. That's a long drive. But when I was in prep week, and we all know prep week is very important for our job, right? Like that's our, let's get it all ready. I found out that something went really wrong inside my body and had to have emergency surgery. Now I was able to make it back for first day of rehearsal, but my ASMs had to finish out my prep week. And when I came back, there were, as anyone who's ever had surgery knows, there were restrictions. I wasn't allowed to lift over 15 pounds. I wasn't allowed to move quickly. And the theater I was working for, the managers, the producers, they were like, sit your butt down. You have an ASM team. We made sure that you did, right? But there was an ASM on my team who took it very negatively, like I was lazy, and made sure to call me lazy, made sure to tell me that I wasn't doing my job correctly, because in school she learned that you didn't have to listen to doctors. And literally,
What school did she go to?
Literally, y'all had a problem with me because I was listening to my doctors, and anytime that she would do something wrong with her job, and I, as her boss, would have to be like, hey, I'm getting complaints from the cast because you're not doing your handoffs, you're reading your book. Can you step it up a little bit and, you know, listen for your cue lines to set down your book and then do a handoff? I would get it thrown in my face that I was a lazy, she used some very colorful phrasing with me. Excuse my Texas, it comes out when I'm a little upset. She chose to use some very mean phrasing against me because I was lazy and I wasn't doing my job. And I was very confused. I mean, we're part of a team. We're supposed to be we're supposed to be supporting each other. So it was just supposed to be. And I think that's, you know, she constantly told people she could have done a better job and she was literally going to the cast telling them that she was better than me and like spreading all. And I was like, this has gotten out of hand. What do I do? And at that point, if I go to the producers, if I go to the production manager, if I go to anybody, then I look like a person who can't get my team under control.
So,
Yes.
this is an amazing discussion. I just kind of want to move it on a bit on the same topic, but just move it on a bit. How do we as stage managers cope with our illnesses doing the job? And that is what we need to get down to, is what do we do? Meditate, okay.
No, I don't meditate. I paint.
I love that photo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I paint.
I love it.
So I'm
That is
actually
beautiful.
a scenic painter, as well as, let me get it even. I'm so OCD. It's fine.
I mean,
I think that's like all of our pet peeves. Don't worry.
But I'm a scenic painter. I learned that during my MFA. I didn't think I was a painter, and then one of the tech teachers was like, anyone can paint. And I was like, but it turns out that anyone can paint.
Wow.
And so I distract myself from my art with art. I have figured out how to, oh no, I have figured out how to shed the stress. So if it's a particularly stressful day at the theater and I need some help, I will go in and I will scenic paint some hardwood, right? Like, because that's a really intense process, but it gives me something to focus on other than paperwork and other than everything that's going wrong. So I art. That's how I cope.
I am also very similar. Crafting is a major thing for me. I just pulled this out. So coloring is major for me. It's big because of mindfulness, but I happen to love this company, Coloring Broadway, because they do Broadway themed coloring pages, and it helps me shut my brain off and just do something so that I have something in my hands that I can say, all right, I made this. And I took my issue with my brain and I turned it into something physically positive. And I find all different ways of crafting, drawing, painting, anything like that can be a way of de-stressing. And I'll also do something like I'll bake. That's another one of mine. Baking is a big one, but then I only have it for so long because once you eat it, it's gone. Whereas if I do something physical that I can actually hold on to, it's a reminder that yes, I took this difficult time and I turned it into something positive, and now
Your
I get to keep it.
coloring books are at least like I have one sitting over there, but it's not appropriate to show on a live stream because I do the curse
Yeah,
word
some of those
coloring
too.
books.
Oh, now
Yeah,
I see
it's
what
me.
a diva is.
I'll show it to you on Facebook Messenger. I'll take a picture afterwards and send it to you. I have students who may be watching. So.
But I mean, the thing is, how do we cope with our illnesses while at work? That is the thing.
Oh, I do these on breaks. I do those on breaks at a show.
I bring my knitting. I also tend to, I love to cook and bake as well, and I love to color. So like I'll bring something to tech that I can sit there and like color on my meal break or something. I bring my knitting so that I can sit backstage and knit and like get my hands going, and I can still listen, I can still pay attention, but my hands are going. And I have home projects, like I have a queen size blanket that I'm working on, but I also have like baby blankets and scarves that I'm able to bring with me and sit there. And, you know, as we all know, stage managers get there so early to do their, you know, pre-show checklists and stuff. I'll go in and I'll do all of my stuff, and then I will sit there and I will knit or I will color until people come in, because I need that time to unwind. I need that time to sit. I need that time to rest. And I would much rather get there an hour earlier than I actually need to, so that I can do, rest, do, and like keep going back and forth between them and just sort of. But I like to like when my actors are like warming up and stuff, I will jump in with them and I will do yoga. I will stretch. I will try and, you know, we will breathe. We will do anything that we need to so that we can, you know, be one, can be okay and be in the right state of mind. And that includes the stage managers, because we all need to cope too.
There's an app that I use when I'm at work called Headspace. It's a meditation app because I know that's totally but sometimes you just get so trapped in your brain that you need to pop out. There's also a meditation thing on YouTube called F That, a guided meditation, and sometimes that's what works. And if you haven't heard it, ladies and gent, I fully recommend you listen to that. Again, it's got inappropriate language attached, so you know, only if you enjoy a bit of cursing. But there are just some times where, you know, you just need to like
sometimes that's needed.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's quite a few of us on the list that has anxiety.
I actually, before I went into this with music therapy.
Yeah. That's how I combat my anxiety, to be perfectly honest, is music.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I've had panic attacks.
Yeah, I have a playlist.
If you don't have a break, or if you don't have a time to break, how do we step out? How do we as stage managers go, hey, by the way, I'm having anxiety attack. I need 5 minutes to go listen to some music. Again, we can't do that, because then this whole thing happens of, like I've said so many times, oh, but are you going to be able to do the show? How do we step up and go, listen, this is what's happening? And this kind of brings us to the next topic. Do you tell all your managers or your employee beforehand that you do have these illnesses? Or do you keep it a secret? But what if you keep it a secret and something happens, and then you need to go, by the way, I've got anxiety. Where do you draw the line of saying, yes, this is what I have? No, I don't have this. But then having an episode, having anxiety, having a PTSD flashback, how do you explain that then? How do you go?
I'm very lucky insofar as I am taking part in EMDR therapy for my PTSD, which teaches me, and as stage managers, we kind of already do this, how to compartmentalize things and put them in a little box in my brain and shove them under and then unpack them when I want to have them. But in that training, I have also trained my brain how to deal with my panic attacks, how to deal, like I know how my brain feels before I have a PTSD flashback, and I know how to stop it. I always have Altoids on me. They're really, really strong cinnamon Altoids. So that if my brain starts getting fuzzy and I start feeling something, I pop a cinnamon Altoid and it brings me back to reality almost immediately. Sour candy does the same thing. It's why I always have sour candy on my stage management table. I have had to learn, and I don't know about the rest of you, but I have had to learn through therapy how to combat my anxiety so that if I start feeling anxious, I can do something with my feet or do something with my hands underneath the table that will kind of expel that energy. I play with clips, paper clips. I have toys. I have one on my table right here where I can literally, I can fidget underneath a table and it won't bother people. That's how I cope during rehearsal, is I fidget pretty badly.
No, I must say, I mean, I've also found some ways of, like, if I'm busy calling a show and I figure, okay, damn, something's happening, but I will start doing something to keep me focused on the show. But I can honestly say that there has been instances where I've gone over comps and go like, whoever my ASM is, listen, come to the S&D immediately, and they'll go like, what's going on? I'm like, get my backpack in the front of my backpack, bring me these balls now. Like, and so a lot of times I will disclose it with my team, with my ASM, because I must, a lot of times I've been in that capacity where I could choose with the ASMs I want, which is good because obviously we've built up a relationship. But I have gone before, and I've said to a crew sometimes, listen, I need you to go to my bag. I need you to get this. It's urgent. And I mean, yes, doing that in that moment it's a horrible feeling. It makes it even worse going, listen, this how I need help, but you can't actually say that without like but I mean, yes, I've also found a way of like distracting myself and stuff. But what I'm coming down to is, should we just be sitting there playing with a fidget toy under the table, or should we be able to go over comms and go, guys, I'm in the midst of having a panic attack. Lighting, if I miss the next cue, if I'm late on the next cue, please go on your cue sound. Do we do that, or do we rather just sit there in silence and go, I'm gonna suffer here and just call the cues?
I suffer.
It depends. Like,
this is something I've actually struggled with. I feel like we're all going again. This is something that I've actually really struggled with, because like some of my stuff is like, give the anxiety aspect of it. Some of it I also have a lot of the physical stuff. So it's like, how much of that do I disclose? And like, it took me a while to like kind of be okay to get back in because of my insecurities. And then, being a stage manager, I sometimes have to explain it to the producer or whoever is hiring me. And I have no choice but to say to them, like you're saying about, I just had surgery not that long ago. Right now, I have no bending, no lifting. I can't do that. So I need to have an assistant who can do these things for me. I need to be able to be that person that is sitting behind the desk on, taking the blocking, taking the line notes, doing any of that, so that it's someone else who's running around moving the furniture or somebody else who's doing those. But I just, as me, and I know mental load wise, I have always set something with my cast and my crew and, whoever is on headset, or so that, again, I tend to be like that mother that like, I want them to, whether it's, a word that, is a code word to me saying that like, I need to step away for a minute or I'm having a problem, some sort of something, or like during tech when like it's really stressed, I have a whole lot of stress balls in my stage management kit, and some of them are funny, like little toilets, and some of them are little stars. But I also have some that are like quite literally a blue ball. And I've had a couple shows that I have said to, my designers and stuff, when you get to that point during tech that like you're ready to just snap at somebody, all you have to do is say, is there a 10-4 on the blue balls? Or like, I'm sorry, the blue balls went missing. And anybody who does not know, it'll make them go, blue balls? Like, it'll make them laugh. It might break some tension, but it also tells me that somebody got to that point that they are about to break. And I know that all I need to do is go, oh, yes, they are here, and let them get off of headset, step away, take a breath. If they need the stress balls, I have the balls. You can just throw them against a wall if you need to. Go in a dressing room, take that time. But I always make sure, I guess because I know that I have trouble coping at times, that I want to be mindful of other people having trouble coping. And maybe they aren't as open about their issues as I am. And maybe it just takes them being like, but I want them to be able to feel safe and comfortable coming to me, even if they don't want to say, I'm dealing with this. I had an actor whose father was, dying in the hospital through it, and he didn't want to tell anybody else, but he was able to tell me. And he's like, I'm dealing with this. I'm sorry if I'm late. I'm coming from the hospital. I'm sorry if I just break down crying and I'm not on. I'm sorry if and I'm like, I understand. And if you need them, they're here. If you need, to grab the tissue box and go cry, go do it. You have to do what you can to make sure that you're okay, because that is more important than anything. I will sooner hold a show and let you get to the point that you are mentally able to do this show than put you out on a stage in a state that you cannot do your job.
But see, that is the thing is, again, we care about the others, but who cares about us? While saying that, I actually want to bring up a comment quickly. Peter says, it's been life-changing to tell my full story up front. Being fully open from the start shows strength, and my team doesn't have to wonder what is going on. Speaking up shatters the stigma. Yes, I agree.
Yes.
I think we all need to learn how to do that.
But not everyone's okay with that.
It's also where you
difficult
are. Like,
I tell my team, I tell my stage management team, I'm like, I have anxiety, I've got OCD, and sometimes that makes me sound really blunt when I'm just trying to get through a sentence. So if I come off really blunt, please always understand that there is a please and thank you after everything I say. But if I am trying to pack things down and keep myself from having a panic attack, sometimes I come off as bossy, and I don't even mean to, because I try so hard to say please and thank you after everything. But if I am like in a hyper focus ADHD moment where I'm like, boom, gotta get boom, 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 sometimes I will forget to say please and thank you. So just know it's always there. Like when I introduce myself, that's when I handle that. But I will say there was one time that I did not have my life under control. It was my first show back after having my daughter. And a week and a half into it, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer. And I fell apart, both in rehearsal and outside of rehearsal. I tried to keep it. I literally found out on our day off, and then the next day was in rehearsal trying to hold it together. And there was a diagnosis scene that we were rehearsing, and I went to the director and I was like, I have to step out. And she was like, what happened? And I told her, and this cast was like a family, and it is the first time I have ever told a cast what was going on in my personal life. We all got together and I told them what was going on, and I will say, I have never felt more surrounded by love. And that's why I agree with Peter's statement. I felt completely surrounded by love being in that theater, because everyone just immediately understood where my anxiety was and why I was so that day. And it was freeing. It was amazing. And then during the run, because we didn't know how long he was going to be with us, I had my prompt book ready for someone to take over at a drop of a hat, because the theater was amazing and they let me stay on, and they had somebody ready to step in and call the show or go to rehearsals if I needed it. And I remember my dad took a really big turn for the worse during the whole run of the show. And there was one night when we got to the end that I just couldn't take it anymore, and I had to step away. And I am so grateful for the support that cast and that theater and everybody showed me, because I had to step away for my mental health, and everyone there allowed me to do that. So I think Peter is right. Being 100% upfront and honest with what you're going through can be helpful to those around you. And it allows those actors that we were talking about earlier and how great they are, it allows them to be your family too. Showing that kind of side is not weak. It actually shows how strong we are, because we can share our weaknesses. We can share our neuroses with each other. And that, me sharing mine, opens up a bond of trust with my team, with the people I'm working with, in my opinion.
One of the hardest weeks was the week
I feel the same way. Once you're in it, it's there.
Yeah. Cassie, what were you saying?
I'm just saying, as a manager, one of the hardest weeks was when our ship actually got hit with COVID. We were denied entry into countries, and no one knew what was going on, and we still had passengers on board we had to entertain. And as a manager, it's tough, because the British nationalities knew they would go home. We didn't know when or how. Being one of two Canadians, we didn't know if we were actually going to go home. That was a very unfeasible option. At one point, it was, and there's certain nationalities, like my lighting guy was Lithuanian. He 100% wasn't going home. Our Filipino crew, we were fighting to get them home. And it's hard as a manager, because you're dealing with your personal things on top of a mental illness, on top of a situation, while trying to keep other people calm. And it's quite difficult. So we're trying to redo shows. We're getting hit. Crew were put into isolation. We had to readapt. So we had other team members come in and join us spot op, which was wonderful. And then as things progressed, luckily the dancers were able to go home. They were part of the repatriation with with passengers to go home. Unfortunately, though, all of us techs, musicians, and the entertainment hosts were stuck. And part of that was we're given limited everything. We don't have internet. We don't have all these things. Our gym, which is my way of dealing with stuff, was taken away. We're social distancing. Meals are regulated. It was a very military style lifestyle we had to live with for about 6 weeks. Our only actual fun was suntanning. That was the only thing we were allowed to do, oddly enough, when you're in the Caribbean on a ship. But we had to figure out ways to deal with our problems while maintaining the mental health of our team. I had a coworker. He was very positive, upbeat, and no one would have seen he was really struggling not going home. He was supposed to go home, and he got told he had to stay because he couldn't fly. So we made a workout group and constantly texting. And when we were put into self-isolation, where we're all individually placed in rooms, and we couldn't leave. We couldn't see each other. There was nothing. It was tough, because you have to, as a manager, back up a bit and go, okay, I'm not doing well. I'm barely talking to my therapist. I have team members I need to make sure are supported as well, on top of my health. And it was a balance. And one of the biggest things we did was stupid tasks like repainting. I managed to get all the sets, because we have 12 sets, repainted. Because that's what you do. And we had musicians come and help. But one of the big things with the mental health, unfortunately, is we don't realize at moments during shows, people start, like I've seen actors and actresses develop eating disorders in the midst of a production. And as much as we have our things, we need to be able to step in and go, okay,
Yes.
I see you, I hear you. And unfortunately, sometimes I think we get so wrapped up in the show, there's lives. And that was one of the week with the dancers and everyone, when all this chaos was happening, no one knew what was going on. I literally looked at my boss and I said, I'm going to take care of the shows. Shows will be modified. We don't have the team numbers. Dancers are not okay. Some want to stay, some want to go. It's a pretty tense place. So we had to make new rules. Like one of my poor dancers, she was crying in between scenes. I threw in a corner where I knew she wouldn't get hit by scenery, and that's just where she stayed between her scenes, and that's all we could do. And I think sometimes we have to readapt to our scenarios. Like, unfortunately, I didn't have the option for my depression and everything. I didn't have the option to acknowledge my depression for about 2 weeks straight. I had to just focus on the job, focus on the task, focus on also life things. I had to focus on the fact that I have to make plans for repatriation for myself potentially, or not go home, mentally prepare for real things. And sometimes we just have to find that balance when things are taken away. Like, all my coping mechanisms were gone. I was in a little room by myself. Luckily, I had a balcony, which not everyone did. And that was it for a couple weeks. That was about it for a week. That's all you have. And you have to be able to strategize yourself internally and know your body well enough when to say, I'm shutting off all my devices. And I'm just going to read my book and drink tea for 3 days and just ignore the world. And that's how I mean, unfortunately, I do have PTSD now from these events because I couldn't react. But sometimes by allowing ourselves to just help and deal, we see a different strength in our abilities.
Absolutely. And I think that goes to answer your question earlier about how do we cope in the moment? Do we allow ourselves 10 minutes to go have an anxiety attack and have someone else step up on headset? Or do we, I channel my energy and hyper focus. It's like the one positive thing about being undiagnosed ADHD. I hyper focus onto the show and I put myself second a lot when I'm in those moments. I have to take 3 deep breaths and realize, okay, this panic attack can happen at intermission, or whatever. I have an actor who needs my full attention right now for their safety. And I'm the kind of person who puts other people first. I think that's why we're stage managers, honestly, is, I was a medic in the Army, not because I wanted to be in the Army, but because I wanted to take care of people. That's what I wanted to do. And when I came back to theater, I was like, oh, I can do this and I can take care of people and I don't have to vomit emotion on stage. Yes. And that's why I joined the Guild of Stage Managers. I'm an organized freak and someone finally saw that my OCD could be put to use. But I hyper focus on other people and taking care of other people until I have the space, the time, and the safety of the 4 walls of my house to have the panic attack, to feel what I feel. And that's been a blessing. EMDR therapy has really taught me how to, and of course I'm the compartmentalizing type anyways, but it's taught me how to pack it into a tiny box until I can unpack it, pull it out, and feel what I need to feel without judgment. I fully think that that's also something that we as artists need to talk about, is that we are going to have feelings. I mean, as you said, you were stuck in a room by yourself. And look, we were all used to being around people. That's what theater is about the connection and the human contact and the, oh God, I miss hugs so much, you guys. Like, I miss hugs. I'm so lucky I have a 3-year-old because she loves hugs right now. So, like, yes, I'm still getting them. But I miss being able to high five an ASM or, we all had to all of a sudden really quickly figure out how to not be there and how to have these feelings. And none of us should judge ourselves for the feelings that we have. None of us should judge ourselves for having a problem with our bipolar or having an anxiety attack or we are human beings. We are not robots. And sometimes, as the play that I took to New York said, we have to allow ourselves to feel without judgment, because it's that judgment that takes us down. It's that judgment that perpetuates the stigma. Me apologizing for being sad that my dad has cancer, not okay. I shouldn't say I'm sorry because I had a breakdown in rehearsal. And I am so lucky I had a director named Marianne Galloway who was like, don't you dare apologize again. You feel those feelings. Like, I am so lucky I had her, right? To remind me that it is okay to be human. That's what we're here to do. Our shows are not there to show you how bots deal with their problems, right? They're there to show how humans deal with their problems, sometimes in a very bad way, Hamlet. But, like, we are there to show people how we deal with emotions. And if we forget the human side of theater, we forget why we're doing this in the first place. If we forget to keep in a mental check with our actors, if we forget that we are there not just as ourselves, but as a human, right? Because that's one side of the job they don't talk about. We are company therapists at times, right?
And
So,
no one's our therapist.
No,
Yeah,
that
and
whole. That
oh no, I
whole,
pay my therapist.
Yeah.
Can we just have
That whole
therapists on staff
motivation-
for every show?
That
We
whole
should.
motivational
I think
speech
we're
now-
supposed to be, but we shouldn't be.
the whole motivational speech.
I think
that
it's also
Renee
crazy
said.
that, like, all of us are talking about, like, once we're on a show and all of the support and us being able to, like, stand up for ourselves and all of that. I mean, like, I'm usually the one who's there, and, like, once I have a show, it's very easy for me. I'm somebody who's very open about my problems, my physical issues and stuff. And for a while I wasn't. I hid it. I mean, I had brick walls up. I didn't let anybody in. Everything, you asked me, how's your day? And the answer that everybody expects and everybody wants to hear is good or great. But you know what? Not every day you're doing okay. Not every day can you honestly say, I'm doing great. You can say, I'm trying to, but once you're in that show, sometimes you're able to say that. But when you're trying to get these jobs, it's very hard to be open about, like, hey, these are my problems. Because I have seen time after time somebody else be chosen because they're worried about me and my health issues. They're worried about me being, stable. They're worried about me being reliable. They're worried about these things. Not that they should be able to. And if I didn't feel like I could do this job, I never would be sitting here talking to you about taking this job. But if they know about it beforehand, sometimes they actually do use that against you and give that job to somebody else. And sometimes what they say can be really hurtful, or what you hear someone say, even once you're in that family, that show family, what they say about you sometimes is hurtful because they are using that stigma against you, even though they can watch you do your job and see you do it amazingly. I mean, like we were talking about with hurting ourselves during shows, like, I am very determined. I mean, I push through my pain. I have broken my foot during tech, and I'm like, I am not going to a doctor until after my show is over. On one of my shows, I had a freak accident like 15 before curtain, and I had whacked to the heads, and I sustained a concussion, and I was PSM calling the show, and all I'm going to say is I am so thankful that I had an amazing ASM on that show, because as I am sitting there calling the show, my vision starts going in. And by, a little while into the show, it's all gray. I cannot see my prompt book. I cannot see my script. I cannot see my cues. And I just had to, rely on my memory of calling those cues. I had to rely on my, lighting and my sound and my projection ops that knew their cues generally. Or, I knew that this person said this word that triggered this cue. I might not have remembered, oh, this is light cue so and so, but I knew that it was light cue go. And I had an ASM that rocked it and ran backstage and got me ice packs. And I took an ace bandage and I wrapped it around my head and I'm icing my head. And, and they were like, you need to go. And I'm like, literally, this show is me and my ASM. And my ASM has never called a show in her life. So I have no choice. I need to call the show. I need to get through the show. It was a series of 4 plays, 4 like 1-act plays. And it was like, it doesn't matter. Intermission, I change the ice packs out, I do what I need to do. And once the show is over, I will go get checked. And I did sustain a very bad concussion. I lost my eyesight. I still to this day have issues because of it. But we do what we need to do. But if I say to people beforehand, it was like, oh yeah, I sometimes lose my vision if I get a really bad headache, or, you know, that I do have migraines and I lose my vision. They're going to sit there and they're going to be like, but what happens if that happens during our show? Maybe you're not the right person to be hiring on our show, and pick somebody else. And we shouldn't have to be. I shouldn't have to say to somebody, yeah, I have lupus and my body attacks itself. I shouldn't have to, you know, hide and be like, yeah, I'm a cancer patient. Like, I'm dealing with this and I've been dealing with it, because I've been dealing with it since 2012. I've had these up and downs. I've been there. I've fought this. And if I can't do that, if I feel that I cannot work a show in the current state that I am in, I'm not going to try. I'm not going to put myself out there to work this show. And you need to be able to rely on us for our discretion, and that we are in okay state enough, and that if a time that we decide that we're not, or if we know that our body right now, I just can't do it, that we need to be able to rely on the rest of the people that are around us, and have a good stage management team, have a good support system, and be able to make that. And that shouldn't determine whether we get a job or not, just because they're afraid. And there really is this stigma that is out there, and like, you shouldn't talk about these things, you shouldn't share these things, you shouldn't say anything other than good, great, wonderful when somebody asks you, how are you doing today? Because you know what, that 1 to 10 pain scale, I'm usually living somewhere in that 7, 8. But it doesn't matter, because you'll look at me and I'll be smiling and I'll be sitting here wonderful, but you won't know that I'm masking my pain because I'm dealing with it. And that's something that I can do. And if I can't do, I tell you.
The two greatest things I learned was living the dream. Doesn't matter what move, living the dream, and no. I find a lot of people forget no is a valid option. And it's the yes people who unfortunately make it hard, because they burn out. They do all this. I was a yes person in university. And then a friend of mine pulled me aside when I was doing carpentry. I was audio. And then they had me doing the AV for the show on top of it. And I was an undergrad doing a full-time minor and my main major. It's like, and she said, you need to say no. And if they get upset, you have every right to walk away, because at this moment, you're more valuable to them. They won't tell you that. By you getting asked to do all this stuff means they need you. You don't need them. And it was a very empowering moment, because it reminded me that you have a right to say no, but you have a right to explain why it's a no. And sometimes we'll forget. Like when you sign up for these jobs, they go, well, we need an SM who does audio and lighting. Oh, can you do props? You go, okay, back up. No, this is why this is impossible.
I can, but
I can
do it, but I won't do it.
See, I always say, I just go with the flat no, because you need to understand this isn't right. Because if I say I can, it means, well, you can. No. Just no, because if you say no, they won't go to someone else, and someone else will say yes, and then they will get hurt. Sometimes telling people just no, and this is why it is a no, is the greatest tool.
I will also say another great tool that I have employed. So sometimes people don't feel comfortable being open about their mental illness or a physical illness that they have. And so I do an anonymous collection right at the top of rehearsal, because I was an Army medic and medical background. I make everybody fill out things. My daughter has a nut allergy, so I need to know what you're allergic to, what medications you're on, because if something happens, I need to know what to tell the medics and be prepared. Like that's our job. Yep. But I also tell everybody, if you have an illness that cannot be seen and you are not having a good day, you don't have to lie to me when I ask you how your day's going. You don't have to be like, great, live in the dream. I tell people to tell me that they are fine. And FINE is actually an acronym for functional, insecure, neurotic, and emotional, right? That's what FINE in my little world means. So if somebody looks at me and tells me that they're fine, I'm like, ooh, I need to go check in with that person. And my SM team knows that trick. A lot of my actors know that trick. I've dealt with actors who have had diabetes, and I have to hide apple juice all over the stage in case their blood sugar starts to drop. And they know that acronym, right? So that during intermission, if I see them chug apple juice, I go to them and I'm like, how you feeling? And if they're like, fine, I'm making it through. I'm like, ooh, they're not making it through. They're okay. And I know just by people telling me that they're fine, right? So that is a term that I tell my cast, my crew, my stage management team. If you need someone to know you're not okay, know that I am a judgment. I don't like to judge people. I try to be as far off the judgment train as possible. And so if you need a judgment-free person to just be like, I'm fine, everything is fine, right? Like, I'm not going to pressure you to talk, right? I'm not going to pressure you to talk about what's going on. But know that I will be like, yep, been there too. And that I am your safe space. I have had days where I've been just fine as well. Right? Like, I'm fine. Everything's great.
That big smile.
Sunshine and rainbows.
My students call it my creepy smile, because apparently when I get angry, I turn into the fine mom where I'm like, okay, guys, let's chat. So yeah.
All in the eyes.
So I'm jumping
and
a
the
bit
tone
back
of voice.
now. I'm jumping a bit back now. I know I keep on jumping back. It's because and now I need to go to a soppy, sad side because after this whole motivational speech that was given by like the last 5 minutes. Jumping
I have a
back
problem with that. Sorry, I accidentally do that sometimes.
No, it's good.
Professor
I think we all do.
I felt like it needed to end there actually. But jumping back, and where I said, do you tell your managers about it? And Peter's comment saying you're upfront. So going a little bit personal. In 2016, bipolar is unpredictable. One day you're fine, one day you're not. I was busy with festival. I came back. Literally, I flew back from Johannesburg. I got off a flight for afternoon, and that evening I OD'd for no reason. I wasn't feeling sad, nothing. That evening I OD'd and I landed in ICU. Obviously, my current employee found out about it, and till this day, there's jokes being made about it. That if it's like a difficult show, someone will go like, oh, "Just don't go take pills again. Oh, just don't kill yourself again." And when that happened, once I came out of ICU and out of hospital, surviving the suicide attempt, and now I speak openly about it because I've realized, again, this is why this whole thing is so close to my heart and why I started this. Once I came out and I went back to work and people treated me differently, firstly, it was these jokes that was being made. It wasn't making it easier, it was making it harder. So I decided to shut down. I didn't tell anyone about my illness. I basically hid it for about 4 years. And then during this lockdown thing, which affected us all, I think, for us in a way, I just went F it, and I literally went on Facebook and I made a public post saying, literally, and I mean, it was quite a long post, but saying, I have bipolar type 2. I was diagnosed when I'm 16. I'm still a stage manager. Having my illness does not define me. It does not mean I cannot do my job. And the amount of people that commented on that post and liked it, and I mean, it's producers of massive names, it's directors of massive names going like, I'm so sorry, I never knew this. Why didn't you tell us? But at the same time, yes, feeling that support then was like, oh, yes, it's great. But then jumping back and going, when it actually happened and people made a joke about it, it made me went into this hidden closet, literally getting back into the closet where I got out of. But I'm sorry, that's a joke. But like,
it's such a serious topic. I'm having I didn't want to laugh.
No. He made the joke. He laughed. It's okay to laugh.
He did it on purpose. It's fine.
I do it. But it's just about things. And I mean, I still... now I've gotten to this point where I go, yes, I've got bipolar. And if people don't want to hire me because I have bipolar, then so be it. If people think I won't be able to do this show, great. But I've got a track record of thousands of directors and producers who can say, yes, fine, I only found out he had bipolar now, but never he showed anything and said, sorry, I can't do the show because I'm having an episode. He would push through. So I'm now open about it, and I will now say, yes, I had a suicide attempt. Yes, I've got bipolar type 2. And if it happens that someone doesn't want to give me a gig, then so be it. I'm not going to hide my illness and live in fear because I might not have work. I know there is people out there that can vouch for the work that I do, and my work should speak for it and not my illness. And that's my bottom. And that also kind of leads into the final topic. What, in your experiences, what stigma have you experienced personally? If you told someone what was their reaction, what did you experience? I'm trying we're running here on 2 hours, and I said an hour and a half, but like I said, if it goes longer, if it goes shorter, it's also good. We're in a good track here.
I worked with two gentlemen, my audio and lighting guy. We did not get along well. Unfortunately, because I was very at work. This is ABCD pragmatic because this is how I need to work with my depression. The British guy pretended to understand it. He didn't really care. He just wanted his smoke breaks and to be able to drink. I'm just going to be blunt. That's all he wanted to do. And then my other guy, unfortunately, from Lithuania, he had his own things we had to deal with him quite a bit, unfortunately. He just didn't quite get anything a lot of the time. He also had a thing with women in general. So when you add on top of it an invisible illness, while trying to run a stage, dealing with the whole cast who just finished doing 8 weeks of install, it's impossible. And unfortunately, what they wanted was someone who would be their buddy, let them drink on the job. That was a huge one. They would drink all the time, and you find alcohol, and you had to be like, guys, you can't be drinking during the shows. They wanted someone who would say yes to them all the time, even if it didn't make sense. It was hard. And part of the stigma was they would throw it at me saying, well, you're a girl. And one of the biggest was, you're a female. Are you sure it's just not your time of month? Are you sure you have an illness? And I was like, yeah. And I just kind of went. And unfortunately, my boss was an intermediate help. He helped, but he didn't help. He kind of made things worse at times. And it's hard to explain. I'm just monotone. I'm neutral. I don't get emotional. I don't want to be emotional at work. This isn't my place to work. I don't want to socialize after I'm done. I want to go to my room and ignore you people because you really just not nice. And the cast had my back, and they were trying hard to help me. But the biggest thing I just did was I told them, when we're on headset, it's immediate need talk only, and that's it. Show talk, we deal with the emergencies, we deal with things. This is a professional environment. You don't want to be a professional, don't be here. This is how the theater is going to be run, and that's it. And it was one of those things where I said, hey, I'm having a down day. I couldn't, because they would just jump on it. And so unfortunately, it was just, I had to work through the days, work with my team. Luckily, my ASM was great. The dance captain was super supportive. The cast was supportive. At the end of this whole thing, though, the two gentlemen aren't getting rehired, and I'm the only one going back on our team because they didn't perform well either. It was a whole mix. And unfortunately, the best way to deal with it was to just do my things the way I needed to do it to function and just kind of look and go, you know what? I'm not going to let you affect me.
Yeah.
I've dealt with that stigma too. My directors have always been fantastic, but going through school, having some other things, there have been shows where I've worked on that sexual assault has been a very prevalent thing. My casts have always been great, but sometimes there are other crew members that do not think that what I went through is something that should still be, I mean, it's been 18 years since I was sexually assaulted, but I still live, like, it's a wound that, like, it heals, but it doesn't go away. Like, I am going to, for the rest of my life, have trauma over that situation. It's a power thing.
It's a wound that heals, but will always stay open. And
right, and and it's so hearing, because we're backstage with other crew members who don't know, like, I don't just walk around and be like, hey, guess what, guys? I was raped at 18. Like, that's not something that I like.
Yeah.
It's like,
Sorry,
wee!
Lene.
It's a conversation downer,
Yeah.
so I try not to share it, right? It's like it really brings everything down. So, I will hear somebody make a rape joke backstage, and I want to elbow that person in the ribs and be like, what the makes you think that's okay? But also, if
Why
they've
don't
never...
you?
Because I am a
gonna do that.
nice person who smiles through things. And sometimes I'll because we won't get rehired if we get violent. Have you not seen that clause either? There's a clause in our contract that says no smacking the out of people.
Where's my cup?
Forgot about that one.
But
Yeah,
at one point,
minor details.
minor detail. We can't get violent. We have to be smiley and happy and like everything's okay. But I do usuly make a quip back to them about, a situational quip about how they're not okay. Or sometimes I'll make a really mean joke about their, personhood. So, I mean, there are ways that we've had to deal with it, but, now we hear all of these guys going, oh, well, the Me Too movement, how do I speak to women now? And I'm like, the same dang way you've been speaking to us, only you're not allowed to grab our butt anymore. Sorry, I'm trying to have a filter and not curse. You're not allowed to grab our butt anymore. You're not allowed to hit on me. Do not call me sweetheart. I swear to God. Like, that is the one thing that will make my anxiety go through the roof is when a dude just like, oh, sweetheart. Oh, like, I am not your sweetheart. Mm-hmm. And I will come at you with a eating stick. Like, I am not your GD sweetheart. I am Renee. You say, hey, Renee.
I'm sorry. Well, see, I think Lene froze it, or she's playing a prank now. Oh, she's back.
No, she's just so angry that she's like...
women at the job either. Like, why do you guys think? Sweet talk, hawk nice. Okay, you did something wrong. Come on, let's talk about. Oh, but you're gonna call me sweetheart? Okay, then, dumb.
Oh,
you can't say
I will
it.
stop somebody and be like, I am not your sweetheart.
See, I just find two things about their appearance. So, like, there's a little plump man, so I called him Oompa Loompa. I'm like, you call me sweetheart? I'm calling you Oompa Loompa.
Yeah, someone called me sweet cakes, and I'm like, you just call me what? Sweet cakes?
Is this how you were taught to speak to other humans? Like,
sweet cakes.
Who raised you to think that was okay? That I hope that
when I responded, I was like, no,
do you talk to
you
your
can call
guy
me
friends
your highness.
So that sounds gross out of context.
So, see, for me, it's again.
I'm gonna steal that. You can call me your highness, thank you.
That's what I was like. If that's what you're gonna call me sweetie, baby, like sweet cake. No, after that, you can call me your highness. Like, really? No.
I would go with Majesty.
You can call me stage manager. You
or
can
head
call
bitch
me
in charge.
stage manager.
I'll take that one.
Yeah, HBIC.
Respect the headset.
I hope that in the future that we will start introducing all of these things into our actual school curriculums as well, and have a class that's about sensitive topics, about how you handle intimacy and mental health, and all of that should be taught in schools as well. I mean, I'm very proud of where I went to school. I wound up going to Temple University. I have both a undergrad and master's from there. And our theater program is based on being a citizen artist and making sure that you know about every single part in the department. But that is a big hole that was left in there, was all of the very sensitive topics. We had no problem talking about, hey, this is how you do business and this is how you are going to be in the real world. But no one ever thought to say, hey, maybe we should have more than one intimacy workshop in 4 years. Maybe we should have something about mental health in theater instead of just that. We didn't even have anything really about physical health in theater either, and we really should have. I hope that that will get brought into the actual educational component coming up in the future, because I got a great education, but that is a big hole that was missing.
In teaching, but one of the experiences in university I had was the students, unfortunately, especially the tech. You do lab hours and all these things, and then you're told to do design work for these shows and stuff, but you see grad students being paid, and you're doing the same work without the payment, and it's teaching
for a grade.
Not even a grade.
Yep.
Not even a grade sometimes. Sometimes
That's
you're
true.
just
just
given
points
the
so that you can
privilege.
continue.
No,
It's a grad student's position. It's a privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For
And we
experience.
we need to educate people. This isn't okay. You do have a worth. And I think it also comes down to the artistic directors to a point. The higher ups, the people running the theater, they're reminding them, hey, you want a tech staff. First of all, you need to have a proper constructive meeting with your staff, going over, does anyone understand different abilities? Who has CPR training? Knowing who on your team has all these things. Be hiring the correct amount of crew for the scope of the show.
And if you're going to have an intern, pay them. Pay your interns.
Yes. Or not giving an honorarium for $1,000.
Pay your interns.
Well, give
I
real
also
money,
think-
not hiding it.
Sorry, my camera's off. I'm having some video difficulties here. I also think that the whole thing of, and I completely lost my train of thought now. Never mind. Continue your conversation.
I'll jump in there. Actually, there's this big thing that since quarantine has been a really big push, and I think it needs to continue, and I think it needs to be added into curriculums. We are trained as stage managers to know first aid. We know how to take care of somebody if they have a wound. But there is this whole thing of mental first aid that we are not talking about, we are not addressing. And honestly, I feel like it's almost more important because we need to be able to take care of each other and to be able to see the signs of someone going down a bad path. Somebody who maybe is walking in that door and is not in the right state of mind. And that one person's right state of mind can cause so many other people to. We need to be able to see these things and help people and know how to intervene the same way as if somebody gets something falling on them and slices their arm open. We need to be able to tend to each other.
We practice showstop procedures. Sorry. Which includes, like, let's say a dancer gets injured on stage. How does the cast respond without doing the circle? Oh my God. Like, hey, we have a cloth, put the cloth over them, create privacy. Can you shut the curtain? Can you not? But that goes for mental health. If a dancer has, and I've seen it 1,000 times, has a panic attack, I keep the other dancers at bay because they need space. You give them space. You're trying to run the show at the same time because unfortunately it's myself and ASM backstage and I'm running the automation. So I don't have a crew to. You get the dance captain involved, and you just have to tell the team, change the choreography, change the plans, but you don't have to give a why. And we need to train, unfortunately, sometimes our team. You don't always need a why. Sometimes we say we need this. Ask questions after the show. We'll do a post-mortem in the time. This is just what it is. We'll do a post-mortem. Please respect. No questions.
So Morgan and Cassie,
I would like to vow. I'm so sorry. I would like to vow that in my college classroom, since I'm starting full-time in the fall, in my college classroom, I will start teaching these things because all of these are important. So thank you for bringing these up because I teach stagecraft because, like, women can wield power tools too. So I will.
Let's not go there now because that's another discussion.
I am
totally
so
different
tired
topic.
of women getting put on wardrobe.
No, but that is exactly what I want.
Women don't need to be put on wardrobe because there's no power
for all of
tools.
these topics.
Kind of,
But
I
thank you for these topics because I will be including them into my curriculum.
Rachel,
thank you for doing that.
Oh, yeah. So, I went to Westchester, which for those of you guys who don't know is kind of down the street and around the corner from Temple.
It is.
And our program is kind of similar where you're taught to do everything and you can kind of choose from there. You have to do a little bit of everything, but then from there you can kind of choose. I just then chose to do everything.
Same.
But something, I'm in a position where it's kind of in that in-between state where it's starting to like get more into teaching more about all of the health stuff. It's not an official class, but like kind of like what Renee is talking about, like professors will kind of chime that in and like, by the way, here's this thing that like isn't in my curriculum to teach you, but I'm going to tell you about anyway, which is good. It's just, I think, not enough yet, which isn't necessarily an individual professor's fault. In college, well, before college too, but especially in college, my mental illness stigma kind of resolved with like this sense of imposter syndrome, where because I was kind of becoming a jack of all trades, but not really a master of one, it was like all these people are looking at me and I've never done this before, so therefore I'm not good at it. Like my first stage management thing was my last year of college, or my first time being a stage manager. I had been an assistant prior to that, but I kind of fell into it and then fell out of it and then missed it. So I came back, and the whole time, again, it was a student run production. And I was like, one, there were people that were running for this against me and students voted and they voted for me to do it. And I was like, there were more qualified people than me to do this. Why am I here? And, you know, that kind of starts this vicious cycle back to getting anxious about it all. And also in terms of my health, you know, I have depression and anxiety, which was pretty common at my school. But there were other people who had other illnesses that kind of made it sound like they had it worse than I did, which they might, and probably do. And that's something I struggled with my whole life, but especially when I got to college, was this like, do I really have all of these issues that are worth talking about then if there's more serious issues with other people? So I had a lot of that kind of, I think that was the biggest stigma, which is kind of the opposite way almost, which is like, you're not ill enough to talk about it, or to use it as an excuse or justification as to why you're doing what you're doing. Luckily, most people were pretty understanding, but that's what it kind of felt like for a while, and still feels like sometimes. But, you know, this sense of imposter syndrome in both senses really got to me. And we were talking about school and all of that. And I think it's just good for us as students, as professionals, as professors, as anyone really, is just kind of a situation of like, going back to what somebody said, I don't remember who said it, but like it was in the comments actually. It's like a broken leg doesn't necessarily hurt more or less than a broken arm. Like they're different, but they're still viable and they're still valued and worth something. And that was something that I missed a lot of, not at the fault of anybody per se, but I think is a bigger issue now than just like, or at least around my area. A bigger issue is coming from that stigma now that we've kind of are in the midst of getting over the mental health doesn't matter stigma, because that's kind of not fixed, but a lot better.
It's the balance, because like you enter a room and it's more common now. A lot of people have depression. It's more common than we think. But it's one of those where now it's that, like for us, because we have mental, like an invisible illness, we know how to control. We're working on handling it. We have help. We're seeking help. And unfortunately, some people don't always go and see help. They don't always go and get a proper diagnosis. They don't actually take the steps. So sometimes I feel like it's that minor group who doesn't take the appropriate steps to actually fully find out, do they have anxiety? Or are they just really caffeinated and they just get really anxious? Is it they have a bad sleep schedule? Like there's a lot of things, unfortunately, that people misdiagnose what we have as they have. And until you go and get proper diagnosis and a proper proxy, about what is happening with your body and how to handle it for you, it's sometimes hard how to navigate this train, because you do meet some people who say, I have depression. Well, okay, what type of depression? Like, or like, you know, like, do you see help? No, but I read about it on WebMD and I think I have it because my friend has it and they have it. And you're going, this isn't a trend either. This is a real thing people live with that you don't want.
But it's also difficult to get diagnosed too. I mean, I've been trying to get diagnosed since grad school, and that's over 2 years ago. It's trying to find a therapist, someone who takes your insurance. Do they take new patients? Then actually get a diagnosis and get treated is almost just as difficult as trying to work with it to begin with.
And that's
especially if you, like, my school did not have great mental health resources. It's a semester long wait to see someone. That kind of thing is something we also need to, if we can't get help from the actual resource, you have to make sure that your company, everyone that you are working with, understands, all right, we have this to deal with as well, and let's make sure that we put this in a place that makes it valid, if that makes sense.
We also need to start shaking off the stigma in our own minds. As Rachel was saying, she didn't think that she was, ill enough to talk about things. We are trained as humans from a very early age, and I don't know about this in South Africa. I know at least in Texas, in the United States, we are taught to compare ourselves to other people. How are you doing based on other people? And the first thing I tell my students is something I've had to learn myself. Never compare yourself to other people. It is the best way to feel awful about yourself. So, if you want to compare your success to Bill Gates, well, great, but you're going to feel terrible about your life as a 36-year-old person because you're not at the same level. What you need to figure out is, what is success to you and how do you get there? Okay, so I have this mental illness that I think I have. How can I be successful in defeating it or working with it or whatever? You have to stop comparing yourself to say, okay, well, my depression isn't as bad as my husband's, so I am invalid. Like my husband has major depressive disorder. So, between his depression, my anxiety, and PTSD, we're constantly doing a dance. And that's something that I had to learn. Just because I don't have major depressive disorder, it doesn't discount my mental illness, right? Like, nobody's mental illness is worse than somebody else's. We're all dealing with our own things. And we have to somehow shake the things that are hardwired in our brain to compare ourselves in order to go get help. Because some people don't think, they're like, well, someone else needs that appointment over me because they're more sick. Stop that. We all need help. We all need, I think, illnesses. Everyone. So I think that we need to shake that stigma of comparing ourselves.
Like,
just because one person has a problem does not negate your problem, and just because you have a problem does not mean that you need other people's pity for your problem. We should all be able to be here and support each other in our issues.
Mm-hmm. The pity look that people give.
There's a reason why I don't like it.
My problem's not an issue because of yours. Yours is so much worse. I am so sorry. Let's address yours. No, let's both talk about our problems because both of us have issues. Right. And we should be able to acknowledge each other's and support each other through things.
This is where we need to address our work to get this type of help. Because unfortunately, in Canada, our health system is completely different than yours. I lived through yours.
Yes.
I did not hesitate to go back to Canada, unfortunately, with your healthcare system.
Oh my God, I love you.
I had appendicitis in Canada, and I was very grateful I had it in Canada. So, but unfortunately, we need to push our work to stop. Like, there's lots of things I find when you're looking at these facilities, when you go sign up for various positions. unfortunately, when you are in the arts, we should honestly have some type of physician, one to help with mental health, because let's be honest, between tech and actors, there's a lot of stuff pulled out, just like in sports. There's always a physio, what are they called for sports?
A
A sports
trainer.
Trainer.
Or,
a trainer
yeah.
on the field in case something happens. We need this,
or a medic, or there's
because
always someone.
we get injuries. It's just as much as a sport as like live entertainment.
More.
Is live entertainment, yeah.
More.
We need these on site.
Yeah.
And I think we need to start pushing this as well in our facility, saying with the new wave, and shows are getting more complicated, more theatrical. Directors are changing, they're getting deeper. Every show has different needs, and we need to start facilitating not just the show needs, but the needs of the people running the shows on all sides.
Yeah. Last I checked, theater was the second deadliest job behind coal mining. So if we have the second
Stage
deadliest job because there's all of these moving parts, why do we not have somebody there for when something does go bad? And a lot of times when something does go bad, it is of a big extreme. It's not just like a little, yes, people walk into walls because the glow tape didn't glow right, whatever. Those are minor things. But like things, I don't know if any of you guys remember the Tonys that like literally down on someone. Like things move, things are flying in and out, going on and off stage. That can hurt, and that can be a really big, heavy thing that is coming crashing into you. We should have people there to assist.
I got an argument with my boss about show ice. Because I said for every tech run, for every show, we should always have show ice. He went, why? Your ASM can run in the middle of show. This is the guy I was replacing. You can go and get the ice. No, my ASM needs to be backstage for the show. He's not going to go run and get ice in the middle of a show. And the fact that he had a debate with me that show ice wasn't necessary and wanted to get me a warning because I insisted on show ice was like, dude, have you ever worked backstage? Like, have you ever done a show? Have you ever danced on a ship? Because when you go up, sometimes the ship's not in the same position when you go down.
So I want to bring up a comment, and with that, I want to start lapping this conversation up because we are running on 2.5 hours now.
Oops.
No, it's good. So I'm going to bring up a comment, and then so this was posted on the YouTube channel. You keep telling yourself it's not that bad. And that is all we do. We keep on telling ourselves it's not that bad, it's not that bad, until it boils up and it boils up, and then you explode. And now it brings me back to my original question. How do we change this? How do we, as stage managers, make a change in the industry and break the stigma? And this is something that I think we all should think about and start speaking about, be open about it. And I mean, it's something as small as making a Facebook post and saying, by the way, I've got bipolar. I know a lot of people are not comfortable saying that, but the more people who actually do it, who actually start communicating about it, the better chance we have of breaking the stigma and of going, oh, stage managers are actually not human. They just exist. As soon as we start speaking about this and going, we are human, we've got emotions, we do have depression, we've got anxiety, we've got PTSD, we've got cancer, we've got all of this. We are still humans. Yes, we are in control of everything. Yes, we need to literally be the god of a show. But there is going to be times where we need a moment. There is going to be times where we're going to have to say, we are not okay. And that is what we need to start accepting, and we need to start implementing it as stage managers across the globe, not just the 6 of us here. I mean, everyone should start going, this tech is extremely difficult on me. I need a break. I'm sorry, but I need a 20-minute break. Or, yes, I have to make a Facebook post and go, I'm a stage manager, I've got depression. It's that thing of starting to speak up and speak. And I mean, it sounds a lot like the Me Too movement now. And there goes Rachel's clock again. Lovely.
I think that more conversations like this too help, right? Like, time in a long time don't feel alone. I don't think I've ever sat with other stage managers and talked about the fact that I have anxiety and PTSD. I don't think I've ever sat down with a group of us and realized that I'm not by myself here.
It's
And that's the
normal
thing.
in a way for us. It's kind of more normalizing it for ourselves.
That's the thing. We all
And that's
think
what we need
that,
to do.
yes, we all think we are the only ones suffering with this. We think we're the only stage managers suffering with this. But about with all, sorry, my words are not forming anymore. From the thousands of stage managers across the globe, most of us are dealing with this, and we need to come together and go, this is happening. Yes, we've got illnesses, we've got stuff we don't talk about. There's going to be bad days. Yes, there's also going to be good days. But again, that does not determine and say that my illness or my condition determines that I cannot do my job. It's a different story if I actually, because my illness affects the show, that is a different story. But for my personal self, I can say that never has my illness ever affected the show that I've worked on.
My
It has taught me-
coworkers have affected my shows more than I think my illness has. To
Yep.
be honest.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I agree,
And
Cassie.
No, I completely also agree. But I think that is, and a last comment on YouTube, I'm just going to lead it. Your condition does not define you. And that is
Yep.
the truth. It does not
100%.
define us. It does not define our job, and it does not define our worth. Yes, we're struggling. Yes, we have bad days. But that does not define us. That does not say that, oh, Dion, he's bipolar. That's it. That shouldn't be what I should be known as. I should be known as Dion, the stage manager. It's the same as Cassie. Oh, Cassie has depression. It shouldn't be that. It should be Cassie, the stage manager. Like, all of us should be not defined by our illness or our condition that is, yes, in a way controlling our lives, but it shouldn't be like that. And I think this is the start of something great, standing up together, coming together and going, yes, hi, I'm Dion, I'm a stage manager, I've got bipolar. And speaking up and just going, you know what, F it. If whatever the bad comes from this, at least we've spoken up. And if it's bad, the generation after us that comes will maybe have it better. Maybe they will have a chance of being open about their illnesses and conditions.
And hopefully this will
I think
bring
that's
mental...
part of our job.
And
I think it's part of our job to make sure that the next generation doesn't have to feel the way that we do, and that we work on getting rid of this stigma so that they don't have to worry about it and they don't have to feel like it is defining them.
But I hope this brings mental health professionals to more aware of our industry. That because everyone sees entertainment for lights and all this, and like, oh my god, like everyone watch Hamilton. I'll bet you not a lot of people probably know about the countless nights not sleeping, the self-doubt. There's probably wasn't, let's be honest, when you get to show up and running, it's not the best conversations all the time. You don't feel the best. And I think mental health professionals will hopefully understand, like, there's so many programs in other industries to get help. So maybe
but there's nothing in our industry.
Maybe
and also maybe they'll stop thinking that because I'm in theater, I'm just being dramatic. I have finally found a therapist that does not believe that. Like, yes, I can be dramatic. We've all seen it in the last 2.5 hours. I have some drama. That's why I'm here.
Just as good as anyone else.
Right. Like, I am a dramatic person. I hate real drama. Like, I don't like real drama. And when it comes to major things, I keep my head about me because of my career and because I react. But when people look at me and they say, oh, you're just being dramatic because you're in theater, it makes me, again, the elbow checks that I wanted to do, like that but violence is not okay. No one should ever be violent.
Yeah.
And I
also think it's really interesting that if you look at the panel here, all but one of us are wearing black. As stage managers and as backstage people, we are quite literally
I have flowers on
to be invisible. Yes, but up here it's mostly being cut off. But like it's really amazing that even on a day that we're not working backstage, we are conditioned to hide ourselves. We are conditioned to be invisible, not to shine some light on us.
When
We're
I'm
not
out that,
supposed to be out there speaking and bringing attention.
when I'm off backstage, I am off. So I'm like out.
Most of my clothing is black,
This was
so that
not
I can just
intentional.
wear it backstage. Yeah, this was not intentional. I was
Yep.
like, oh look, there's a shirt. But like most of my clothing is just black, so that I don't have to pay attention to what I'm pulling out of the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're so conditioned to like hide
wear this
ourselves and like
backstage.
not talk about these things and like be invisible. And when you watch Hamilton, I've had this discussion with a few people recently. When you're watching Hamilton, you're seeing the actors, you're seeing the this, you're seeing the that. But there's all of these people that are backstage that are doing their jobs amazingly, and you don't notice them because everything is seamless. But you need to start shining a light on ourselves because we are an extremely, important and integral part of theater, just as
Alcoholism.
much as the actors.
Self-medicating alcoholism is a huge problem. Like I remember in university, everything. Let's go for beers. Let's go for beers. Let's go for beers. Even being on the ship, let's have some beers. Let's have some beers. I'm an automation tech. There's no drinking when you do automation. Like it's just zero standard because it's a life in your hands. And unfortunately, people just,
no liquid lunches.
No. And it's hard for people sometimes. You can tell are medicating on the job. Like you just did a meeting. I need to go have a beer. It's not even 4 o'clock yet, and you're like, we need to acknowledge this stuff in our industry as well. The self-medicating that's very prevalent.
Can we just not talk about it during quarantine,
So
though? Because, like, I'm not even going to lie. I get done teaching class at noon, and I'm like,
yeah, but you don't have a show to run at night.
Yeah, there's no show. There's no technique or show.
Don't.
You're not responsible for anyone's safety but your own.
I was about to say, I had
well,
one
actually,
in class
no, I
something.
have a 3-year-old.
But in quarantine, we
So
make
I'm
friends all
responsible
over
for
the
her
world.
safety, but I have a husband who can also.
We're in quarantine. We make
That's
friends
true. I made a friend in
internationally.
South Africa yesterday.
Exactly. So it's not 5 o'clock here, but it's 5 o'clock
Look at
by
us.
him. That counts.
We've got a new Canadian and a
Totally
South African.
So it's 5 o'clock his time. We're good. Don't worry about it.
5 o'clock my time. Excuse me.
Great,
It's
perfect.
10 at night.
It's 4:04 here.
Yeah, 4 o'clock here.
I think that brings us to the closing of this. And as we close, I do want, and I hope everyone who's listening to us, I want you to go out and speak up. I don't want you. We don't want you to be quiet anymore, and not I. We don't want you to be quiet. Stand up, speak up, and let's start a unity where we can speak about this openly. And if you have a problem, reach out to your stage manager's friend if you don't know how to deal with it. But speak up and don't bottle it up. We are all stage managers. We are doing this for life. You don't have to fight alone. That's what I'm saying. And we are literally the 6 of us here. We are proof of that. 6 stage managers who are all suffering with a medical condition or illness.
Plus 2 more with internet issues.
Plus 2 more with internet issues.
Yes.
But I want you to go think, and I want you to speak up. I want you to, and I mean, it's something as small as making a post on Facebook. You don't even have to say you've got an illness, but it can be posting a quote. It can also be, and this also goes to the theater people or non-theater people out there. Support your stage managers. Reach out to them and ask them if they're okay, especially during Tech Week. Tech Week is the most stressful time for us. So reach out, ask them, are you okay? Just a message. Post on their Facebook wall and say, hey, I know it's Tech Week, but just pop in.
Or even just thinking of you.
Yes, just a normal, but what it comes down to is speak up. We all need to speak up and make your voice known. Speak about your experiences, speak about your mental health, speak about your conditions, and do not be afraid to speak about it. And whatever the consequences, let it be. But rather speak up and let it be out there instead of keeping it to yourself.
And know that we stand with you.
Yes.
The 6 of us and the 2 that couldn't be here, we stand with you.
And more people that you may not even realize.
Exactly. And I don't want to say
Yes.
this because I feel like it's
There-
going to go on for another
Many
hour.
of us out there. And if you need someone to talk to, there are people.
Exactly. I don't want to say this because I feel like that's going to go on for another hour, but does anyone want to say anything else before we end this?
Opening the door, Dion.
That's a dangerous
Really,
question.
that's dangerous. That's dangerous.
I'm just glad that we were able to have this conversation today, and that there are so many
Yes.
people in the comments too that are willing to open up and speak about it. And I just hope this continues. This can't be the end of it, and it won't be.
Hopefully this will bring awareness to people outside of our area to see what's going on and have a better understanding. And hopefully this will promote change from the outside too, not just from within.
Exactly.
Hopefully
Yes,
someone
there's a
watched
huge
this.
stigma.
Yeah, hopefully someone watched this and realized they weren't alone and will reach out to somebody because they're no longer going to be judging themselves. That's what I hope.
And also, can I just say,
Yes.
if anyone do wants to talk and they're struggling, they're more than welcome to reach out to me on Facebook. Honestly, I don't mind. It can be someone I don't even know. Just drop me a message, and I'm more than happy to chat to you. I'm just putting it out there as someone who suffers with mental illness. You do not have to fight this alone.
Same.
Same.
And there are resources.
Yep.
There really
Many.
are.
Also,
Yes.
if you can, even if you haven't been diagnosed or will never be diagnosed, get a therapist anyway. They're so nice.
Yes.
They're great.
They're great
You get to
have.
talk about your BS for an hour, and they have to listen to you.
I was
They
gonna
can't
say-
be like, "Ooh, I'm busy."
Every person should have a therapist. Like that, I say it to everybody. So it's not for some people, but
Or a
And
healthy
coffee
outlet.
does
Yeah,
not
but
help anxiety, and it's
but
all
it's-
over a theater.
It's nothing to be ashamed of.
right.
There is no shame in it.
Nope.
No shame.
Asking for 15 is okay.
And there are plenty of people that have been to bad therapists before. And just because you have had a bad experience, you have had a bad person, somebody has not made you feel good, has not spoken to you, that move on to a new person. Because I know I personally have had ones that we didn't mesh, or I went in there feeling great, and every single time I was there, it made me worse. And that's a sign that you find someone new, find someone that is a better match for you. And
Therapists
don't get
like
discouraged
dating.
because of it. Take a little time, but find someone new.
It's a
Yeah.
relationship,
Yes, it is
just like
so much
anything
like
else.
dating.
Therapy's like dating. You have to find, as Pantology Cat on YouTube just said, you have to find somebody you gel with. You have to find somebody
Yeah.
that's not toxic to your experience and what you're going through, right? It took me years to find the amazing, wonderful, brilliant therapist that I have right now, who's a part of a group. So if you're in Dallas, Texas, and you need help, reach out. I will give you their name. They're fantastic. And there are different kinds of therapy for the different kinds of illnesses that are out there, and I don't think people realize that. My therapy, their group, they specialize in PTSD based on gender-based crimes, right? So that was a safe haven for me. I know that I can call them if I'm having an issue, and someone at that practice will pick up, because that's what they deal with. That's what they're there for. So find people that are going to be there for your feelings, that aren't going to judge you for your feelings, and that aren't toxic to your personality, because therapists gel with your personality just like your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your partner, your dog, your cat. All of us have, somebody that's toxic to me may be great for Morgan, but we have to find the person that gels with our soul. I find therapists are a lot like soulmates. So, I can't live without mine now.
Yes.
And I think officially that brings us to a close. Again, I just want to say, if you want to reach out, I'm dropping my personal email address in the chat section now. In the comment section, I mean, please, if you want to chat, if you just need to speak to someone, please reach out. I can also assist you with people. I can reach out to the other stage managers I know from the different countries and places to help you wherever you are from. You're not alone. And again, I want you all to go out and think and speak up and not be ashamed. I want to say thank you to everyone who tuned in. I want to say thank you to our wonderful panelists. This has been a 3-hour discussion. I never imagined that in my life. I expected it to be like 20 minutes, to be honest. But it's been amazing. It's been something that needed to be spoken about. It's been something that was it's time that was brought to light. And maybe it is just the 6 of us and the 2 is having internet problems. But at least we spoke about it and we came together and we took our voice and we said, this is it. And hopefully, like Lene said, hopefully somewhere out there, someone got that and they're listening. So from my side, thank you from Downstage Productions. Thank you for tuning in to our wonderful panelists. Thank you for attending. Have a lovely evening, afternoon, morning, day. I don't know the time zones anymore because
whenever you watch.
Just have
Whatever
a wonderful
time it is.
But thank you, and thank you for reaching out and tuning in, and reach out if you need to and speak up.
Yes, and Dion, thank you for doing this because
thank
this
you.
is very important.
Well, I'm glad all of you agreed to be part of this. It's been wonderful. And with that, thank you, and blackout go. Tabs go.